talked about at the last meeting, under Selectmen's comments, that this is for the administrator or member of the Board of Selectmen to sit on the school committee for negotiations of their contracts with the school, and also to have a vote on said contracts. And that I said, as I talked about last meeting, that we would go ahead and I would report back to what the superintendent told me or anybody, and other comments that I was able to solicit. It was inadvertently left off the first version of our printed agenda tonight. It should not be a surprise to anyone on the board, because, as I said, we discussed it at the last meeting. Everybody got the handout that I still have here. So I feel it's a valid item to have on our agenda.
There any further discussion?
I think just relative to open meeting law, normally you have to advertise if there's going to be a vote within the 48-hour period. I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing it. I'd be a little uncomfortable actually voting tonight, since anybody that might have had a vested interest in attending that thought we were taking a vote wouldn't have the opportunity to be here. So I'd put it off to the next meeting after that to actually have the vote.
Any other discussion? Any motions? Okay. The agenda will stay the same. All right. Is there any community input regarding the agenda? Community, okay. Let's go on. First item on the agenda is the hearing on the Carver Convenience, Inc. Quickies Convenience Public Hearing for a change of manager. Would you folks here, would you like to come up here and tell us your names and where you live and describe what you're looking forward to or for?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Matthew Porter. I represent Lilibin Patel. We're before the board today on a change of manager, as well as a transfer of a liquor license. Ms. Patel is going to be purchasing the
Would you like to sit down?
Could you use the microphone too?
You
Can I
need
sit
to-
down as well?
Yes.
You need to speak kind of close to the microphone because we want folks at home to hear our discussion.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. I apologize. So as I was saying, my name is Matthew Porter. I'm here with Lilibin Patel on the transfer of a liquor license and the naming of her as the manager at Quickies Convenience, 60 North Main Street in Carver. Ms. Patel has been operating, or I should say, has been managing a store currently up in the Worcester area. This will be her first purchase of a liquor license. There are no plans to structurally change the business at all. It'll continue to operate in the same manner as it is operating currently. And certainly I can answer any questions that you may have, as can Ms. Patel. There's a little bit of a language barrier, but I'm sure we'd be able to work through it. So. Thank you.
Okay. Board? Mr. Clark?
So Ms. Patel is purchasing Quickies,
Should be purchasing the business, yes.
purchasing the business, and before us tonight for the transfer of the liquor license.
Correct. Yeah, so should be purchasing the business contingent, obviously, on the liquor license transfer being approved by the town and the ABCC.
So basically, you'd like the board to approve the transfer of the liquor license subject to her purchase of completing the transaction and the purchase.
No,
of it.
well, it would be approved, and then, once it was approved, the transaction would then go through at that point, so.
Or not approved?
Yeah, so a purchase agreement has been signed, okay, as is customary, but everything upon the purchase is contingent on the liquor license being granted by the town.
Okay, yep, I get that. Questions? Okay. Not at all. I just wondered, Michael, is there anything that we need to concern ourselves, maybe Michelle, with taxes or anything on the building or any of those things that might be a concern?
No,
Back taxes?
I believe all taxes are paid up. And I think, just to pick up on Mr. Clark's statement, I think what you were saying is that you're approving this transfer of management, understanding that they are going to purchase the property.
Correct.
If they choose not to purchase the property, then you wouldn't want to make that transfer.
Correct.
So I think that was just a clarification I wanted to bring.
Yep.
So I understand you're not gonna buy it without that.
Right.
And they're making their vote this evening on the assumption that she is gonna purchase the property.
That's a correct understanding.
And if she doesn't, then they would want you to come back for whoever the new manager would be at that point. If the deal
Absolutely.
fell through.
Yeah, if the deal fell through, it would just remain status quo. So,
I think we also sometimes add to, that we will check with other, the tax department and so forth, just make sure that all permits and fees and taxes are paid up to date, so that the granting of the transfer of the license will be contingent upon that.
understood.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ms.
Michael, I'm
Maloney?
sure this is fine, but since open meeting law is always a happy discussion, the agenda says for hearing on change of manager. Is it implicit in that it's for the liquor license? And will that be a problem?
With the ABC, you need to designate who the manager is of the license. So what you're doing is the license is being managed by this person, so you're transferring the management right of that. I don't think the liquor license is changed by ownership, I think it's changed by manager.
Yeah, here the liquor license won't change. It's generally structured in one of two ways. Either it's a transfer of a full business to another business, okay, and whereby
You change locations.
whereby the name of the owner would change on the liquor license, as would the manager. Okay, here this is structured as a stock sale, so essentially there's one owner of the business right now. He's going to be transferring all of his stock to Miss Patel. Okay, so the same corporation owns the business. Okay, it's just contingent upon her now being named the manager of it.
I think that's okay.
Okay.
You feel comfortable?
Further questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, anybody? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of this approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, Michelle, we support it.
Best wishes.
Yep.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, and good luck, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, town administrators update.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, and members of the Finance Committee, John, have you called your committee? No. Want to do that?
Yes. At this time, I'd like to call the April 7th meeting of the Finance Committee to order. And through you, Mr. Chairman, our meeting is scheduled for Thursday to vote on the warrant and all the budget articles. So we came here, firstly, we appreciate being able to come here tonight and hear as much information as we can about the items that we haven't addressed yet on the warrant article, and perhaps ask some questions on open items. But our plan was to vote on Thursday, because our discussions can usually take a couple of hours, and I don't think we'll fit on this agenda.
What time are you intending, John?
We're scheduled to meet Thursday at 7. I won't be able to make the
Oh,
school
okay,
building study
all right,
tour.
well, yeah, I'm glad you told me. I'd be looking for you, okay. All right, we'll miss you. All right, now,
So, Mr.
so, Finance Committee's in session, and we are, go ahead, Mr. Malinowski.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we had a meeting last Tuesday and Thursday, and in those times, we had a draft warrant that was presented on Tuesday with some of the motions filled out, and on Thursday, we finalized all of the articles, all 17 articles for this warrant. So tonight, we're gonna be going through those articles and voting on the recommendation of the selectmen. And should the Finance Committee wish to vote on any of those, they can tonight, or they can wait until Thursday. So the first article is the annual town report that's printed, and it's a vote for the town meeting to accept the annual report. And it's a standard item that we always have as the first item on the agenda for all town meetings.
Make a motion to approve the annual town report in Article 1.
Third.
Okay, any discussion? All right,
Here we go.
this will be the Board of Selectmen's recommendations, all right? No discussion, all right, All those in favor of this article as printed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 5-0. For you, Michelle, okay?
Actually, I'm just gonna clarify this motion as I'm looking at it right now. And recommendations of the governance committee is not part of the motion. So the motion is just to accept the FY14 report.
So before we, in any more of the articles, we need to hear the proposed motion at the bottom before we do any voting.
We will do that.
Okay, all right.
John, you wanna do this one?
Okay, so we're headed to Article 2 then.
Article 2 is for...
Excuse me, Michael, can you move the microphone closer?
Article 2 is for 5 unpaid bills that were not submitted in a timely manner to close out the FY14 closeout. This does require a 4/5 vote from town meeting, and the total for those 5 bills is $3,801.25. And that money, those will be funded through the financial disclosure account, where there's ample funds to support that amount.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, discussion further. Is there, do you want to read the proposed motion, or are we all set with that?
As printed on the screen.
Okay, and as is on the
the
print in front of us. Okay, any
Michael, can you tilt that more towards the audience?
because we have it right in front of us, Michael. Yeah,
Whoop.
okay. I hope it doesn't fall down.
Careful, jeez.
Watch out, John. Watch out.
Put up, we had a whole team putting this up.
Well, if you bolted it to the sheet rock, we're in trouble.
Then we're in trouble.
Okay, all right, we're ready to vote on this motion? Any discussion? All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0 in favor of supporting the Article 2. Article 3.
Okay, Article 3, generally in past town meetings, we've had a couple dozen transfers that need to be done. Based upon the new structure of the budget, where we have the 5 major categories within the town, we don't have a need for having this for the smaller items. However, this year, one of the big expenses that we have that's over budget is our snow and ice. And as I mentioned last Tuesday, that budget is $400,000 over budget at this point, a little bit more than that. With that, on Tuesday, I had made some recommendations as to how much to transfer from different accounts. And then we took that out on Thursday for the board to discuss that as we move forward in the future. 2 of the items that we have is the town hall health insurance account. According to our town accountant, is anticipated to have a surplus of $200,000, and our town hall retirement account is projected to have a surplus of $60,000. So between those 2 accounts, what I'll be coming back to the board with is for a Board of Selectmen's vote to transfer $190,000, maybe even up to $200,000 out of those 2 items to cover half of the deficit for the snowplow. We do have as part of our financial management policy number 2, is that the town should avoid all budgetary procedures that balance current year expenditures at the expense of meeting for future year's expenses, such as postponing expenditures. So, you know, there is a desire to fund this year's expenses with this year's money. And there were 3 major categories that the town accountant was able to identify that had ample funds to do this. So for that $200,000, or $190,000 to $200,000 that I mentioned, that does not have to go to town meeting. However, to fund the remaining amount, should that come from, a portion of that come from the schools, that would need to have a town meeting vote. So from there, I will leave it to the discretion of the selectmen as to what you'd like to do.
Okay, what's your pleasure? Yep. Go ahead,
Um,
Ms. Hewens.
Michael, you sent us an opinion from the DOR this afternoon in which they addressed that. And if I'm reading this correctly, it says the Director of Accounts concluded that the town could appropriate school employee health insurance costs into a separate school committee item from which the school committee could not transfer for other purposes in the school operating budget, after concluding such expenses would not be considered for educational purposes. And then earlier it says, and when the town may appropriate for certain specific purposes to a separate line item budget in the school budget, over which the school committee has no independent transfer authority. And then at the bottom of that paragraph, though, it says, note the opinion does not recommend such an appropriation and outlines the difficulties which might arise if such an appropriation has been made. So the way I'm reading this is, although it may be legal, it's certainly not recommended to take something from the school budget in this way. And I don't think it's right either. I don't know if the school committee's been consulted, how they feel about it. It was
Okay.
voted at last town meeting that was part of their budget, so, I mean, and it says it's not recommended by the DOR.
Thank you.
I have a different interpretation. Basically, what this is saying is, we should not have been having a separate budget for health insurance for municipal side and school side. That is what DOR is getting at. Also, the fact that our auditor said the same thing, but being that we are in this position, the school has an overage right now. In fact, it's more than 280,000. I believe the latest estimation from Meg, about 315,000. So originally, the last time we were talking about this, we were looking at taking up to 210,000. Even if we took that max amount, it would still leave the school with over 100,000 for the last 2 months, which should be more than enough to cover. Having said that, also, this ruling states, and if you go through and look at the different decisions made by the DOR, the school committee itself nor the school department can take any excess funds in the health insurance and use it for anything else for the school. I mean, basically, all we're doing is we're saying this money has to come back to the town, one way or the other. They cannot use it for emergency repairs, they can't use it for anything else, because health insurance is not deemed as part of educating the children. So basically, it's kept as separate. So to me, I see no problem with going ahead and taking part of this excess that they can't do with anyway, because any other further excess is gonna end up having to go into free cash. Now, the other problem we have is the fact that this is one of the unintended consequences of having a town meeting this early. Because we have taken some money, the town has, by article, to go ahead and take money from that budget to be used for other shortfalls on the town side, specifically school. And I believe it was the 2011 budget that we went, FY budget, that we went ahead and did that. Only difference is, that town meeting was in June. So the school already said, yeah, no problem at all. Now we're faced with, we have to work on assumptions, and on the best information we have that's been given to our town accountant, and we have to assume that she was given accurate information, they're gonna have this overage, and I'm sorry, but, leaving them still 100,000 in their health insurance account, I don't see any way that, they can't hire enough people or have people decide to go to family plans to cover that, to use up that 100,000+ in 2 months. I just, it'd be awful hard to do. So, I don't look at this as taking money from the school department itself, because we're not taking away anything that they can use for all their other line items in their budget. The health insurance excess, they cannot use in any of their other line budget. It goes back to the town. So to me, I see no problem in going ahead and taking this money and using it to go ahead and offset our outstanding snow budget. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Ms.
For the
Maroney,
sake of further discussion, I would like to make a motion to approve Article 3.
I will second.
all right, further discussion?
Well, I recall that when our superintendent was here the last time, she specifically outlined some of the things that money, that they were anticipating having a use for, and they were all school health insurance issues. That's my recollection.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. I spoke with the town administrator earlier today, and he had indicated to me that he didn't plan on proceeding on taking the monies at this time, partly because the school department would tell you that they have a different opinion and interpretation of the laws that Mr. Dunham cited, which would strike me to believe that we'd end up having our attorneys arguing with each other in terms of what the correct interpretation is. And also that the governor has appealed for emergency funds that might negate the need to take any of these monies. And so he had talked about tabling this article at this time and returning to it once we saw what government action was taken. I'm concerned about, getting involved in taking the money when we're having, there's still a quarter of the school year remaining in terms of where we may, what may end up happening. So it just seems, and I can tell you that my understanding is that the school committee is not on board with this recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may? Unless, Helen, you had another
No,
comment?
go
you wanna
ahead.
make? Okay, basically, again, you may have, the lawyers may disagree. I feel very confident that the interpretation that I stated is backed by our town council. It's pretty much, to me, it says, they cannot use this money other than health care. And Meg has already gone ahead and taken account anything they have outstanding. I believe the big one was, they were talking about a Plymouth County bill that has already been taken out of and taken into account. So this is actually the money that you calculated is to the best, given the knowledge you've had and the information, your best estimate.
Come on up here.
If you would, please.
So when Michael had asked me to look at these lines, what I did is sometimes there'll be lines in, there may be other things that are run through there that might be health insurance related, that, because I'm thinking that the only things that should go through here would be the payments to Gateway. But I looked at last year's account and I looked at the year before, and the only payments that are going through these lines are for Gateway. So it's nothing out there that I haven't thought of, that I haven't considered. So then I took this year's and looked through the history of the account, and we've made 10 payments so far, which means we have to make 2 more payments. I looked at what an average monthly payment should be, multiplied that by 2, and then whatever was left over, that's how I came up with the amounts.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Moore?
This has been an unprecedented winter. What we are asking is unprecedented because we've never had to really look deep and hard at what are we gonna do with this snow account. Meg, our accountant, has done all the work, so the likelihood of the school needing excess money in the healthcare is going to be slim. And a few meetings ago, we had, I think, a 20-minute discussion on how the town and the school are supposed to be one, and that we're not supposed to call the school town and the town school vice versa. We need to come together, and it is clear. I interpreted it the same way that Alan interpreted it, is that we can share this. And the bottom line is, like Ron Clark said, it's very possible that we may not even need this money. But the
Could
fact,
I just comment on that, though?
yes,
The reason why I think it would be better to clean it up now is if the money's come in next year, I mean, depending on how, it could, just because it has been a record-breaking year, but right at this point, the DOR hasn't even told me how we'd have to deal with this, because under normal circumstances, like, if we have a storm and we get a FEMA reimbursement, the year's been closed out, we get it the following year, and it has to go into general fund receipts, and we can't then appropriate it till it closes out at the end of the year. So if we end the year in a deficit, unless there's some legislation or some direction otherwise, we'll have a deficit that needs to be based on the tax rate recap, and then basically, we're not in balance. So it's better to clean it up before the end of the year, because then you know where you stand. You don't have any issues as to, are we gonna have a fall town meeting to clean this issue up or anything like that.
Mr. Chair, one other item. To go along with what Meg said, I've dealt with, FEMA enough. I know, first off, there's no guarantee the state. I know they're trying very hard to get some reimbursement from FEMA for this past winter. No guarantee. Plus, it takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years for FEMA to go ahead and actually get that money if it's approved to the state, and then it still has to filter down to the individual towns. So there's no telling how much we would be getting. So we can't wait for that, because we have a fiscal policy that says we have to pay 2015 bills with FY 2015 funds. So it's not something we can really put up. The best you could do, if you want to delay a little bit, is we'd have to have a special town meeting to deal with this before June 30th. And if we don't have to have one to go through the expensive one, I don't think we really need to. Again, by moving the town meeting up, we were all fully for it. I'm still convinced it's the best way to go, but you have to go ahead, and there's some assumptions you have to go with to be able to have things out. You can't just put things off and maybe have a special town meeting, because that kind of defeats the purpose of having town meeting this early to begin with anyway. Thank you.
Chairman?
Mr. Malinowski had his hand up, then I'll come back to you, Ron. And then I get to say something.
What I'd like to just take a moment and just give the board the range of options that's in front of you right now is, one, you can just table this article, and, actually, before I get there, we have a $400,000 deficit. You've heard Meg explain the issues with that. I believe, and Meg believes, that we can accommodate a good half of this deficit within the existing town budget, not government side budget, because of some of the healthcare savings that we've done, and we have a surplus for that. The gateway account is very easy to calculate. We have solid numbers for that. So again, I believe half of this can be resolved. The other half is where we still have the delta. So your options for that are to table it, and which would mean that we'd be running a $200,000 deficit through the end of the fiscal year, which would impact next year's free cash. Your other option is you can fund all of it through identifying where you would transfer $200,000 out of other accounts to fund that delta, or you could split that and fund a portion of that and then let some of that roll into free cash. Our understanding from DOR is of the $318,000 that's calculated to be left in the school account, that over $250,000 will roll into free cash unless town meeting makes some appropriation to transfer that money based upon what we had in DOR. So you don't necessarily have to make a decision tonight, but you have to make a decision before Monday at 6:30 for our town meeting as to what amount you want to put in here, if you want to put an amount in here, one way or the other. That's your range of options that you have for this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think by not making a decision tonight is kicking the can down the road. It's a difficult decision. It would be a lot easier to say, let's not make a decision. I think it would be irresponsible for us to put this town into a deficit and possibly affect our free cash, because we're trying to build up our credibility for the building of the new school with the, when we go to get financing. So I have to respectfully disagree that we should be tabling this.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, there is a very simple fix to this. We're putting a very healthy $757,000 into the stabilization fund. We could easily cut that back by $210,000 and then take the money at the end of the year and transfer that, or hold that over. That'll flow into free cash next year, and then it could be transferred into the stabilization fund next year. So it's not a net loss. We'd be covering it the other way. My concern is that 5 days before town meeting, to be informing the school committee that we intend to take $210,000 out of their budget is not the definition of cooperation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, but Ron,
May I?
we use that money anyway.
That I will guarantee you
Meg
that they
has-
will have
Meg
their
has
team of
done the
lawyers
numbers.
that will indicate that that's not accurate.
I get to speak on this issue, please.
Yes, you do.
Okay? I visited the superintendent of schools this morning. The school committee is very upset with their working relationship with us, the Board of Selectmen, and our town manager because of this. They had no knowledge of it, and we didn't present it to them until after we presented it to the public. That is a problem, is working with the school committee. The item itself, there's a couple of things that bother me. One, we need to all cooperate on trying to deal with this snow budget that we've overrun by $400,000. Taking money out of the health insurance budget from the school, as I understand it, Megan, is that if we take 200,000, we're asking the school committee to save 200,000 out of that budget for the end of the year to hand over to us to pay off this debt, then they can't do without a town meeting vote.
Well, by having this town meeting article, what would happen is as soon as town meeting were to approve the article, I would move the money out of that line the
But
next
if
day.
the town, if we don't, if we say we're gonna put it on, table it,
Oh.
and do it later, the school committee just can't transfer it to to the snow account. It has to be voted by the town at a town meeting.
Yes.
So how are we gonna do that? That's one of my questions, Mr. Michael.
And just for the record, I just want to clarify is, going back a month ago, there's emails going back asking the school for contributing half of the snow budget, where at that point, I think we were losing a $150,000 budget, and I had requested $75,000 from them. So yes, the $210,000 is a new number as of last week, but there has been this discussion going back for a month, looking for at least $75,000. And I think that the superintendent has said that they may have more money available, but they want to wait to the end of the fiscal year. And then that puts us into the dilemma, is that there's no legal mechanism to transfer money in June to the snow and ice budget without town meeting's approval. So that's kind of where we are at this point, is, whether you choose to go forward with a $200,000 number, a $100,000 number, $75,000 number, or a $0 number, the only legal mechanism to do that into that account is through a town meeting authorization.
Or simply a delay where the money comes out of the free cash now and and when the money's turned over at the end of the year, when we next vote free cash, we
But that's on
replace it.
FY16 money, because we would go into it with a
Correct.
deficit, as the town accountant said in the beginning, is when we close out our books on June 30th, we would have to have that allocation done by then.
Well, you use free cash now to pay that 210,000, and then you recover it next year.
So, to your second point on the $750,000 is, yes, that can be transferred out of there, out of the existing free cash, and that's something the board can do. I would suggest that that may not be in the town's best interest, because we're trying to meet our financial management policies as we go out to the rating agencies next year. So that number will meet us at our 5% threshold for our stabilization fund. That means a lot and gets us extra points as we go through the bond rating. Can you do it? Of course you can. I would just suggest that you only do that as a mechanism of last resort if you didn't have any money available. But here, you clearly have some money available. And again, if you don't want to wait till tonight, you can kind of work out a number between now and Monday to come up with a number that's acceptable to everybody. And I know the superintendent has been floating some numbers around that she believes she will have at the end of the year. But we do need this legal mechanism to transfer the money.
I don't think we'd be bonding in 2016.
Yes, we will. We'll be going out to do some temporary borrowing in 2016.
Temporary borrowing, but not the
Yeah,
permanent
no, but
bond.
that requires a rating. So we're gonna have to be going out for a bond rating for doing our temporary borrowing and our permanent financing. So that's why I'm trying to steer us in a direction, so when we close out our FY15 year, and we quickly get our audit done, then those audited statements are what the bond agencies look at as we move forward. So that's really key, is to close out the year, close out our books, get the audit done, and then use that document when we go to our rating, because it'll show the progress that Carver has made.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Ms. Ewens, yeah?
I'm kind of in agreement with Ron. I think we should try to fund it from free cash or stabilization. And I think our rating is, I understand we are trying to improve our rating, but I also understand it's pretty good as it is right now. And I don't think this is going to affect it all that much. It's not as if we're taking the whole thing out.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Maroney? Yep.
I think
Go.
touching our free cash is irresponsible in terms of, we are trying to get this school. We have been working very hard over the past year and a half, trying to build up the stabilization fund, free cash, financial strength, in order that we will be able to get the best rate of return when we go out to borrow for the school. And I implore you that We want to build this school. Meg, our accountant, has done the numbers. I apologize, I didn't, in terms of if the school committee and the superintendent were just satisfied with the communication, but that can be worked on. But in the meantime, we do have to come together and work towards making a solution. And there's a lot of financial facts that this is not going to burden the school. It's not going to burden the school. And I just implore you to reconsider using free cash, tabling this, or going into our stabilization fund. That would be like telling my daughter Danielle, my daughter Juliana, who I'm trying to teach her about CDs. If you put money into a CD, you make a little bit more money. But if you take it out early, you're gonna be penalized. We are just starting to build up our free cash and our stabilization fund, and if we start tapping into it, that is the same analogy as cashing in on your CD because you wanna get a swimming pool a little bit sooner than you would have if you had waited the time out.
Mr. Chairman, I need a point of clarification from the town administrator, if I could, please.
Go for it.
Or, I didn't know if you want to say something first.
I'm going to say something after you do this
Okay,
and try to move forward on that.
I understand. Originally, I remember there's like 5 or 6 items, and the original number you had for this was 210,000 from the schools. So my understanding is now we're actually would be looking at less than taking 210,000. Because you're saying a full half, 200,000 is from the municipal side. Where else, what is the max amount we would be requesting from the school health insurance budget?
Well, right now, I'm looking at, between the town insurance and the retirement, that we can move that up to $200,000. So the max amount that it still needs to be funded from some other source would be $200,000.
Okay, thank you. So in that regards, I agree entirely with Ms. Maroney. To take it out of stabilization, we're working very hard to get our stabilization account up to the level that we originally put in our policies, which I believe was 5% of our budget, and the amount that we have scheduled to go in there as a result of this town meeting will bring us up to that 5%. To go ahead and reduce that now, when there's money that cannot be used for anything else on the school, I know you're gonna say their lawyers will disagree with it. I'm sorry, but, you know, to me, it's pretty clear. Yes, they may get into a legal fight about it, that's fine, you know, get it resolved. But I don't wanna put this off, I want this to go before the town with a set, amount, and I'm recommending that, you know, we put in as part of our vote that it's 200,000 from the municipal side, 200,000 for the town side, and I mean, I think it's only fair.
That would
Mr.
be included.
Chairman, I know you want to speak, just one last word. We're not taking the money from stabilization, it would eventually get there, just be delayed. And I think we're setting a terrible precedent over the school committee's objections to take this money and recommend town meeting that we take this money without their cooperation.
Everybody seen where I am? Meg, the budget line item that we're talking about, you said is 318,000, you figured a 320,000 in surplus after you make the payments to the insurance bills coming into us from Gateway for April, May, June.
Only May and June, because we pay them.
Only
in
May and
advance.
June. So and there isn't a way to transfer the school committee, it's gotta go before a town meeting for them to transfer out of that to the snow account or back to a stabilization. I really don't wanna go forward with this that way if I can help it, because I don't wanna, I need to work to get our school committee working with us. However, I keep looking at the fact that we can't transfer it, it's gonna require another meeting. I am gonna go with the article the way it's been amended by Mr. Dunham. So, are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of this article, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, so it's 3-2, Michelle, and I'm gonna be in the deep well,
We all,
We all will.
but we gotta, anyway. Okay, that's for Article 4, we go to,
That was Article 3.
that's Article 2. Okay, yep, all right, Article 3. So we're going on to Article 4.
If I could, just, before we end this article, would I propose, when we put our agenda together for Monday, where we have a quick little half an hour meeting beforehand, before the town meeting, is to have the board vote to transfer the other 200,000 from those two accounts into the snow and ice before town meeting, so that piece gets wrapped up ahead of time.
All right.
Okay. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
We just wanted to, on the town warrant that we have right here, the numbers aren't listed with regards to the transfer. And the vote that was just taken on Article 3 is saying 160 right now, coming from the town health insurance fund, 30,000 from the town retirement fund, and 210 from the school budget.
Yes, so this right here with the 200 is what was
200.
voted.
That's 200.
Thank you.
Article 4, oh, that's messy. Is to transfer, hold on, I'll get there. There it is, there we go, now we can read that a little bit better, it's getting better. This is to transfer allocation of funds from free cash. The first $75,000 for the Finance Committee and also for the Capital Reserve Fund, as approved at town meeting in 2014, Article 15, is to replenish both of those reserve funds. Those reserve funds released each $75,000 earlier this year to meet a time-sensitive expenditure as related to the elementary school project as required by MSBA. So part of the agreement was, when we had our next town meeting, was to replenish their accounts. That'll still leave the, so again, that's for the $75,000 for each one of those accounts. And that would be for this year. As part of FY16's budget is to transfer $170,000 to the North Carver Water District. This will close an anticipated revenue deficit to cover their capital cost. As we talked at last town meeting and other meetings, the North Carver Water District is operating at deficit. It doesn't collect enough revenue to pay all of its capital expenditures, so the town is obligated to fund that delta. The good news is the North Carver Water District is being able to fund its full operation cost and a little bit of the capital. The $757,000, that's to transfer to the General Stabilization Fund, as we previously talked about. And then for FY16 is to establish a, if needed, and again, this is just a reserve account, if you will, for an employment-related healthcare insurance transition and restructuring cost of $100,000. This is to some extent tied into some of the healthcare issues that we have going on in town, and should the selectmen need some additional funding because of some votes that were not taken in previous decades, that the selectmen will have the ability of tapping into this fund during FY16. So that is the entire amount that we have certified in free cash, and that's where it's proposed to go. Because this is going to be transferring some money to stabilization funds, it does require a 2/3 vote.
Okay, what's your pleasure with Article 4?
I move that we accept the article, approve the article.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Just a question that if by chance it was necessary, that general stabilization fund it's a number that can be adjusted lower, it just can't be adjusted higher, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, any further questions? John?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just had just a quick question on the number 757, 446. How was that calculated? I know we're following the management policy to reach a targeted number and was it certain, is it 5% or something like that of?
Correct, and it's 5% of our general revenue of the town.
Yep.
So that's the number that would be needed to meet that expectation.
We wouldn't meet that expectation by putting this number, oh, we would?
By adding to it, it may give us 5.01%.
Close, okay.
But I just rounded up the 446 into this number.
Gotcha. And the $100,000 that we're setting aside for restructuring costs, where exactly would that money go? From free cash to another reserve fund? Do we have another reserve fund?
No, it'd be just set up into an account for, an article account for that 1 year. Is that right, Meg?
It would be probably like under the selectmen's department, because it'd be at their discretion to spend out of it. But it's an article, it doesn't close out at the end of the year.
And how was that $100,000 round number? What was the basis of that?
There's a lot of moving parts tied into the healthcare, so I can't really break that number down to you. It's there as a reserve. If we determine it's not needed, then we would be moving to transfer that back to reallocate that at a future town meeting. So it's only there if needed. It's not there to spend unless there is a requirement tied into these healthcare items.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor of supporting Article 4, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's 5-0, Michelle, yes. Okay, Article 5.
Article 5 gives the town the ability of, the Board of Selectmen, the ability of entering into 3 payment in lieu of taxes or tax agreements with 3 projects that are proposed in town. Jack, would you just come up for a second and just identify where the 3 projects are? As he's coming up, again, this just transfers the authority to the Board of Selectmen, so you have the ability of negotiating these agreements. We have started negotiating some of these. We haven't finalized them. But keep in mind that the last 2 the town did are double what the state average is as far as getting revenue for the town. And this is another form of economic development for the town, and I think Jack will show that, these will have no impact in neighborhoods.
The state average is around 10 to 12,000 per megawatt, and the last 2 you negotiated were 20,000 and one was 22,000. The first one is on Federal Road. This is right near the landfill on the Wareham border. This is by A.D. Makepeace. Planning Board has already approved it. Conservation Commission has already approved it. And it's about 3.6 megawatts. So if you get 20,000 per megawatt, you can do the math per year. So it's probably about $70,000 a year. The second one is on Solar Circle. It's what we call the McGrath property. It literally abuts the town of Plimpton, Kingston, and Route 44, directly opposite where Cisco is. It's kind of scorched earth if you see it from the highway. There probably was earth removal there, Dick, right?
That was, I think that was scraped for the highway.
Yeah, that was used for the highway.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay. That was originally, it's been approved by the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board under TJA Solar. That interest has been sold to Borrego, and that one is 1.7 megawatts.
Roughly how many acres is that? Do you have any idea?
That's a lot of acres. They're only using, I think, about 9.
Yep.
But there's a lot more acreage there.
How
But
much-
we left a lot of buffering there. For
How
the
much of that would be on the Carver side, or would it all be on Carver?
The 1.7 is all on Carver. It's a good question, Alan. The town of Plimpton has already approved, I think, an 800,000 kilowatt, 0.8 megawatt project, for their piece, it's actually landlocked, so it would join that, the 1.7, but you wouldn't get any interest on that.
Right, but our share would be from the 1.7 megawatts.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
The last one is one that I know has been in front of the board several times. This is the Antero one that's on the Paddock property. They already have a tax agreement signed by the board back in 2011, I think. But they are looking to secure financing a possible pilot. It's a little more, I guess, from a financial standpoint, the creditors like that a little better. And I know
It's-
Michael's still negotiating that, and we're not sure, that might not even come to fruition for Tuesday, is that correct, or Monday, rather?
Correct. It's actually the power purchase agreement that the
purchase, yeah.
board authorized. There's some legal issues with that, and that's another reason why we may need to have this added to it as well. But there is a benefit with that project because we will be getting some net metering credits on top of that.
And that's 1 megawatt.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
yeah.
How long do these agreements last? So they just go into,
20 years with 1 5-year renewal.
so after the 5 years, it's a renewal, and then it goes out to the 20?
The other
No,
way.
no, opposite.
Oh, so it
20
goes
years,
to 20 first, then
and then
a five, it's like having an extra year option for a baseball team, for a
Something
contract.
like
So you have 20 years plus an option for 5.
I'd never sign a baseball player for that long.
Me either. Thank you, Jack.
And again, this town meeting just authorizes the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and enter into these agreements.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
Are any of these, if we approve these, when would they be up and running?
Most
Well-
of them would be under construction for the next fiscal year. Some of them may start construction beforehand, but none of them would be operational this year. We may get in some of the permit fees for this fiscal year if they start construction, but nothing could be operational by the end of this fiscal year. I don't think.
2016 budget does not anticipate any revenue from these projects?
It does not.
Not 2016. I'm gonna respectfully disagree.
Oh, that's
They-
right, the Intero may be up
Right,
and
right.
running.
That one's ready to go. This is the last piece with the Antero.
It's a small one, the 1 meg.
The Borrego on Federal is pretty much ready. The TJ one, there's some transferring of title and stuff that I'm not aware of on that one. That might take a little
But
longer.
again, we're not including any of these revenues in the 2016 forecast.
We did not. We're hoping that we do get some of the permit fees in there to cover some shortfall with some state budgets that have come out, where our state aid has gone down, but we have technically not included that.
It's a good question because there'll be substantial electrical fees with this. Our electrical fees for solar are pretty high. So I can see 20,000-30,000 for each project, maybe more.
Ms. Maron?
I think Sarah wanted to say something first, didn't you?
I
yeah.
didn't see the hand.
That's all right. Real quick, I just, on the Antero project, I wanted to know both how the landowner and the developer, is this something that they're
Yes.
eager to enter into?
Yeah, they're ready to go. You have a signed contract with them with a tax agreement.
Okay.
What they're suggesting is a pilot with an even better benefit to the town if they need it. And they're gonna find out today or tomorrow, I think. They should know by Tuesday whether they need this or not.
We had to get the Intero posted by last week, so that's why it's there. It may fall off, it may not, but we had to get it done before
So we may
advertise.
be scratching or deleting that,
We may
to
be
Monday
scratching,
night.
see, we'll have to see how that plays out.
all right? Any other questions?
Just-
Go ahead. Helen.
Thank you. Just two quick things. I just want to confirm that this is just allowing us to enter negotiation. It doesn't
Correct.
necessarily mean we're agreeing to anything at this point.
Nothing.
Okay, and the second thing, I think, Jack, you've mentioned at previous meetings regarding these three, oh my God.
Agreements.
Thank you, I got my voice
Agreement.
back, but some of my brain is still on bed rest. There's no neighborhoods in question that we went through on Purchase Street, or none of the residents will be impacted?
Well, we had public hearings and Conservation had public hearings on all three of the projects, and there were a couple neighbors with the one on solar. They were actually Kingston neighbors and one Carver neighbor, and we mitigated that with quite a bit of setbacks, even above and beyond our solar bylaw. And with Federal, there were no neighbors. And with Antero, even though it was back in 2011, I believe there was one neighbor that showed up.
And so is the one on solar, is that one Carver neighbor now satisfied
He
with the
seemed
setbacks?
to be, yes, yes. He can't see it. He was more concerned, he wanted Solar Circle repaved, and they agreed to do it, and it's a condition of approval.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other point that I've made in previous presentations. The reason why we do these pilots and why we recommend the pilots is we actually lock in what we believe the tax rate's going to be. The benefit to the developer is they have these financed through Wall Street, and the Wall Street wants to know what their fixed payments are every year for 20 years out. This gives them that number. More importantly, and why it benefits the town to do this is there's a strong solar lobby that's been lobbying the legislature to eliminate or severely reduce the taxes that a town can collect on these solar projects. By having these agreements, we have been advised by council it becomes a contract, so then the developer is obligated to pay it, even if the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, decides to lower the taxes, which they have strongly been pursuing, and it's, we believe, predominantly through our assessor, from her contacts, that it is inevitable that at some point they will be lowered. So what we're doing by these agreements is hedging the town's constant revenue by putting these together. And yes, it does help the developer, but I believe it helps the town more by giving us a guaranteed revenue stream for 20 years that then comes into our budget. And if you remember our forecast, we have the TIF agreements, coming in as separate new revenue coming into the town with little or if any impact. No school kids.
I will make a motion to approve if
right.
there's any further discussion.
Second, was Sarah. Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah.
Yep, John?
Just a couple of questions. One would be, on the third one, is it the Paddock property? Is that the one that's on Main Street?
Yes,
So, was there an issue before with that,
I had one abutter, you mean with the neighbors?
with the location of it being right on Main Street, visible right off the street?
I had
and-
one abutter at the hearing, and he was in favor of it.
And I guess with regards to these solar agreements, is this typical? I mean, I'm putting my mindset in a town meeting, the member of town meeting. We're essentially going to them and saying, please vote for this and trust me, we're gonna get the best deal possible. And my question is that typical? I mean, I would like to see myself, I would like to see you going to town meeting with the exact deal. When we did Ravenbrook with,
Got the deal.
we had the deal in place. Everybody knew exactly what the number was gonna be. It flew through town meeting. Here we're going on a maybe somewhere between $20,000 and $12,000 per megawatt.
Well, I don't know if it's public, but their second proposal was
We're gonna
north of that.
Yeah. You're right. There is some trust that you're giving the selectmen to negotiate these in the town's best interest. I think they've proven themselves for the last couple they've done that have been very beneficial to the town. But it is a negotiating process to go through, and we're at different stages with the projects, so we don't have the final numbers. I will tell you that we are pushing to make sure that we end up with a number very similar, if not more, than we've done in the past.
And we could be looking at a special town meeting in the fall. Why not wait until the fall when we actually have a number to go to town meeting with?
Because they do want to move to construction well before then.
So you anticipate this deal being signed in not a few months?
Could be, yeah.
Does us telling the numbers right now endanger our negotiations?
Yes. I wouldn't repeat the numbers, except that, why we're quoting the old numbers that we've done with previous projects is that's what we're shooting for.
Okay. Any further discussion? Ready to vote?
Can I have a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Andy?
Michael or Jack, have actual analysis has been done on what the actual taxes collected would be on these properties if they were left at a straight rate?
To answer that question, yes.
Okay.
And we negotiate for 100% of what we anticipate the tax to be. We do not, the last two that I've negotiated, we do not give any breaks.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, the benefit to the developer is it locks in a number. The benefit to the town is it locks in a number. And our assessor puts together the forecast, and we work with what we think the rates will be.
There's a suggested DOR formula that thankfully came out about a year and a half ago that Ellen uses, and that's the starting point. And that's what it would be assessed if there was no deal, if there was no pilot, and Michael's correct with the last two.
Good, okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Yeah, there's no deals here, to use that word literally.
Oh, dear.
The deal is the town gets a guaranteed revenue source. It's not that we're giving anything less away.
Okay, all those in favor of Article 5, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. We support that. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. All right, Article 6.
Article 6 is our budget for the town. It's broken up into four parts. Part A is the townwide organizational chart for FY16, the FY16 wage and salary pay scale, which has no increase from FY16, and the wage and salary classification plan for elected and non-union employees for FY16. Those are identified in Appendix A, B, and C of your packet. Part B is the operating budget for the town. That is identified in Appendix E for informational purposes. And that is broken down into the 5 categories, broad categories for the town, and the school's budget of the 21,952,223, which was the number that the Board of Selectmen authorized on February 20th.
Did you say that was 952?
954, 223.
Okay, I thought you said 952, sorry.
Part C is special funds, and this puts $120,000 into our OPED trust fund. This is the savings the town will realize from moving from MedX 3 to MedX 2. The Town General Stabilization Fund will have its annual $25,000, plus the amount that's the difference between the net levy and the levy limit, which I'll have Meg explain in a minute. The Capital Stabilization Fund has $2.1 million. The North Carver Water District Enterprise Fund, $70,000. And the Water Betterment Debt Stabilization Fund, these are prepayments that have happened for $28,000. And then finally, in Part D is the enterprise funds, and these are from receipts, $309,000 for the North Carver Water District and $64,000 for the Cranberry Village. A couple notes is that in the informational section, it talks that the school committee has a different number than what the Board of Selectmen have approved. It's $33,000 more. And that is $21,975,597,000. One of the items that I just want to bring to the board's attention is for motion A, you would have to recuse yourself from discussing and voting on the elected classification plan for town officials. Other than that, this is in the same format that it was in last year. Meg, could you explain the net levy versus the levy limit?
So when we begin the budget process, the first step of what we do is to project our revenues for the following fiscal year and have a pot of money. This is what we have to work with, and then we sort of formulate our budgets and capital from there. And we have to go and have a balanced budget, but it never is exactly zero at the end of the day. There's usually a little bit left over. And then also, during the budget process and after town meeting, things will change. Most pointedly would be the cherry sheet, because we have the governor's budget, we don't have anything thereafter, House or anything like that. So what generally happens is, leading up to the tax rate process, things will sort of move around. And we always have to have a balanced budget or a surplus. But whenever there's a surplus, we don't want to lose that, because it's money that the town could put aside into a stabilization fund. So when Ellen and I work together to do the tax rate recap, we plug in all the numbers, and then if there's money left over, what we do is, rather than just lose it, we're going to take it and appropriate it into a stabilization fund. So that wording, I've actually used that wording in another town to move that money. So it's sort of, it's a question mark at town meeting, but, because right now, we just don't know.
And again, that rolls into the general stabilization fund, and, you know, if the legislature decides to give us $25 a head versus $20, is we'll be able to capture that money.
Right.
Okay, questions?
Through you, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
Yep,
Can I just mention something that we learned through the budgetary process that I think the residents should know and that we should remember when we're voting on this, is that in regards to the wage and salary classification section, Appendix C, the governance committee was very thoughtful of the volunteers in this town and has recommended that certain volunteers be given stipends, and that some that do receive stipends, it should be increased. One of those would be the Board of Selectmen. So I think you should carefully read Section C. We need to exclude ourselves from even voting on that. But I think we vocalized our thoughts on that, but I don't think it's a very good time to be approving the Section C.
On the screen, I have those listed. You'll see most of the recommendations that came from the governance committee is that, that chairman would receive $300 per year, and members would receive $150 a year for many of the committees. The planning board actually was reduced, and the selectmen's chair and members were increased. But again, you do see a few more $300 and $150 in this proposal.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I'd
Dunn.
like to recommend that we vote each part separately, and on Part A, we take no action on Appendix C.
Exactly.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
All right. Okay, further discussion on Article C.
No.
Part B.
Real quick,
We will do Part B first.
can I just say one more thing about A?
Yes.
Make it quick, I promise. And again, because the selectmen can't vote on our own, salary or stipend, I won't discuss that part, but I partially agree with Helen on this, but I feel even more strongly that everyone who volunteers for the town should either get something or nothing. So that's just my feeling.
So, Mr. Chairman, we'd actually be
Mr. Dunn?
starting off with Part A, but only dealing with Appendix A and B.
Okay, yep, all right. C would be the,
That's when we're recusing ourselves
okay.
when we're done.
so will be, the motion would be to vote on Part A, Appendix A and B.
That's correct.
Okay, any further questions or comments on that? All right, all those in favor of supporting Part A of Article 6, Appendix A and B, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, Part B, Article 6, Part B. What's your pleasure?
I move that we accept, approve it.
All right.
As
Second.
Okay, discussion. It's pretty good. 22 million bucks here. Okay. No further discussion? Yeah, John?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is some issues, some follow-up questions, Megan, if you don't have to get this for us right now, but one of the things we were looking at was the historical overtime for the police over the past 3 years. If maybe you can get that to us before Thursday, if that's okay. The other item was on the budget, we had the streetlight charge, $300 and some odd thousand, that there is a revenue component there, and I don't think we went over that on Saturday. Could you give me a little idea as what that revenue component is? If you don't have it now, that's fine. You know, is it covering the 300,000? Is it more than the 300,000?
That's for the solar panels.
Net metering, I think, has to do
Yeah,
with.
net metering, that we pay this company Fisher Solar for the solar panels, and then Instar turns around and gives us a check for that, so there's a revenue, and actually the revenue exceeds the expenditure.
Yeah, if you have that estimate, if you could just let us know.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Ready to vote?
Mhm.
Okay. Article 6, Part B. All those in favor of supporting this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's 5-0. Michelle? Okay. Onward, Part 6, Article 6, Part C. What's your pleasure?
Move we approve.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Comments? Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor of Article 6, Part C, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous.
You're just putting money in there. It's a,
You're not dispersing it.
you're putting into a general fund, you're not talking about your personal benefits. It's, the town's gotta pay it one way or the other, it's just putting money in. Yes, so I don't see any conflict with that one.
Again, Article 6, Part C, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, 5-0. Okay, Part D.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve Part D.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Questions? Okay, all those in favor of Article 6, Part D, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Support Article 6, Part D.
Mr. Chairman?
Do we,
Okay, yes.
Sorry,
John,
just had a quick
go.
question with regards to Part D, the North Carver Water District Fund, $346,000. That's exclusive of the 170, where that we're funding it?
Yeah, if you add the 170 and that together, that's their budget. Well, actually, if you were to tie back to the budget that I gave you the other day,
Yep.
you take the 170 from the free cash, that number from that article, and then up above in the funding for Part B, we're funding their indirect costs. So you have to add 3 components together, and that would total the budget that I gave you the other day.
Thank you.
Okay. On to, where are we going here? Article 7.
Article 7 is the capital improvements budget from the Capital Outlay Committee. There's a couple things that I want to bring to their attention. Jack, do you want to talk about the recreation piece? I know that was one item that's come up.
not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, next article.
Yeah.
Take that back. Apologize, that's Article 8.
It's community
That was
preservation.
a test,
aid.
Jack, you passed.
He's paying attention.
Okay, so the Capital Outlay Committee voted unanimous for this. I do want to call your attention to one item that's been added to here since our meeting on Thursday. But all of these projects, the municipal well, dump truck, townwide master plan, walk-in cooler freezer, supplemental funding for the fire station, 2 police cruisers, new septic system, replacement of the gym floor, technology for the school district, test books for the school districts, 2 71 passenger vans, buses, supplemental funding for the elementary school, and the debt service, lease payments, interest, project manager, disclosure statements is all part of the plan. I'm gonna pull that up just so we all recall what that was. That is Appendix D? Let's find out. No, Appendix E. Nope,
You gonna talk
Appendix
about
F.
Part B?
here we go. I hope everyone can read that. There we go. Yeah, there's the big version. So you have this is the one with the colors. And then this identifies what new revenue was coming in down the bottom, plus the additional funding that we didn't spend last year was added to this total. So again, this is the document that is based upon. Going back to the article, this also includes the three fire engines and the repair of new engine 4, as well as outfitting and equipping the engines. Part C is Part C has to do with the middle high school. So this is to fund the town share of replacing the roof on the middle high school, upgrading and replacing the boilers in the building, and upgrading and repairing the windows and some of the doors for the facility. The roof clearly has passed its useful life. We've had a lot of discussion with this on the Capital Outlay Committee. Dave Siegentoff has gone through an exhaustive amount of information. The roof does have some significant leaks in it, and it needs to be replaced. So this article, in fact, what it does is doesn't allow the town to spend any money on this project until we receive the MSBA approval, where they will fund no less than 50% of the grant. Although we're showing $7.4 million, our anticipated expenditure is actually half of that number. And it's actually going to be less than that, but we're required to have approval from the town meeting to fund the entire project cost. We're hoping that by having town meeting approve this and move this forward, we will be able to secure MSBA funding faster with the town behind repairing this. Again, the bulk of this is for the roof and mechanical systems. The roof has to be repaired, and all of these items will be funded within the town's capital and debt stabilization fund. This does not require any type of an debt exclusion or override for the town. It's all done within the tax base.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Denham?
Just to clarify, so everybody knows, on the Part C part, that's MSBA's rules. It's, to play their game, we have to actually approve the entire amount before they'll even consider giving us back 50% or more. So that's the reason that we have to go ahead and get town meeting to approve the full $7+ million.
Part D?
Part D, this is the piece that was added from our last meeting, and this ties into the elementary school. We are working with the property owner next to the elementary school to potentially either have donated or purchase a easement for the radius of the well, so that we would have a little bit more flexibility on how to locate the well on the elementary school site. There was a meeting at DEP last week where they came back with a few recommendations. I've emailed and been in discussions with the property owner, and hopefully we'll have something wrapped up by the end of this week as to how we would go about doing that. Town meeting does have to grant to the Board of Selectmen authority to have any interest in land. Again, what we're most likely looking here for is a permanent easement for wellhead protection.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Mr. Dunham.
For
go.
town meeting, we will have to have a number of any potential cost. Because right now, it's Part D, we're not listing any dollar amount, and that would have to be in by town meeting, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So when we're approving it, it's with the understanding that there will be a dollar amount in there that the town will be able to see.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct. And one other thing I just want to bring to everyone's attention is what the Capital Outlay Committee also authorized is that in consultation with the Capital Outlay Committee Chair, that all expenditures need to be done in the most fiscally responsible manner, and to manage all approved projects from planning and design to procurement, including negotiations of contracts and change orders, with quarterly updates to the Capital Outlay Committee. And so this puts responsibility on each one of the projects that the Capital Outlay Committee has approved.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Oh, and Capital Outlay Committee voted 4-0 on this. 4-0.
4-0.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead,
Thank you.
Ms. Maroney.
As I had mentioned during the budget process on the capital outlay items, although I believe all of you supported the following two items, technology for school district, 100,000, and textbooks for school district, 100,000. I would like to separate this out if we can, or I'll just vote no on the whole article. We had just had a tense discussion about the school and the town coming together. And although it may seem like a few of us are being, not being cooperative with the school, I think this Board of Selectmen have been very cooperative because, quite frankly, textbooks and don't typically come out of capital outlay, and we were willing to do that for the school so they would meet their budget. I am strongly opposed to the textbooks. The technology, I'm not thrilled with either, even though we do need technology, but not to the degree that we're paying out last year and the subsequent years. The reason is, and I'm going to reiterate this, is most of the textbooks, and I researched the textbooks, I saw the textbooks, are all Common Core related. Common Core is a new curriculum that it's been being phased in, and there's much opposition towards this program. We are currently in Carver only in a pilot program, a pilot mode for Common Core and PARC testing. I think it's, again, not a wise decision to be investing all this money in textbooks for something that has so much opposition, both on the state level and the federal level. Governor Baker currently is having statewide public forums on Common Core because of the opposition. We have approximately 650 days until the next presidential election, and some of the candidates that have just announced are already saying that one of the first things they're going to do, if elected, is reject the Common Core and stop it. I had asked that we wait just 1 year till we let things settle down to find out what is going to happen. I understand that the textbooks are old. They were old when my daughter was in school, who is now 20. However, they have been managing. I think we can manage 1 more year. And again, I do not think it's a wise decision to be spending an additional $100,000 on technology, because we spent a lot of money last year, and to spend $100,000 on textbooks that at a future date, a very near future date, may not be even valid. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I fully
Mr. Dunn?
respect your position, Helen, and I can really understand it and
Yeah,
appreciate it. But I think, to me, a better place to deal with this will be on town meeting floor. Maybe if someone wants to go ahead and go with an amendment, I think it would be a little confusing for us to go ahead and vote the article,
Not a
except for
problem.
those two things. So I'm going to make, with
Yep.
no offense, I'm going to make the motion that we accept
Yep.
Article 7 in its entirety as written.
and then I can just, okay, I agree, that's fine.
All right. Discussion on, any further discussion on how we're going to vote this?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Clark?
Yeah, and Helen, has made a couple of valid points. I have taken the opportunity to talk to some folks out of our school district. The technology piece I'm very comfortable
Yeah.
with, that it's just something that's happening.
Right.
Tablets are gonna be the way students get tested, no matter whether it's Parks or MCAS or whatever it is.
Right.
So I'm very comfortable on the technology side. I understand where you're coming from in the textbooks. I guess my concern would be, and I got this feedback from talking to a couple of principals in other districts and so forth, is that it's gonna be years until there's a new type of textbook that if indeed Common Core doesn't go forward. So I just don't know what the alternative would be, but I'm certainly looking forward to the forum on Friday night to
Yes.
find out a little more.
Thank you.
Could I just
Thank
ask
you
for
for your input.
clarification? Helen, we can just put a note up here like I wrote here, or we can just take the vote and you can make that recommendation or that point at town meeting. And I guess it's
Oh,
your
sure,
call.
and
That's what Alan
yeah,
suggested.
and that's not a
All right, so
problem.
I'm gonna
I'll
delete
just
this
vote
note.
no here tonight, and then I'll just make the point. Not a problem.
So you'll vote yes tonight and then make the point at town meeting?
She might
Oh,
vote
Oh, she
no.
might vote no
I
tonight.
need to vote no.
Okay.
How about if we
Or we
take,
can do this, and you could vote yes for it, and then there's a note that you did not support spending capital funds on textbooks.
If that can be put in there, then I will vote yes.
All right, we can,
can we
Leave that
amend
As long
the
as
article?
that can be put in there.
Can we amend the article to exclude those two items and then take them in the second amendment or the second vote as to how we feel about those two items, those two line
I
items?
think that's getting a little confusing at that
Yeah,
point.
Mr. Chairman, I was just making my motion for the
Okay.
sake of simplicity.
Yeah.
All right.
and I think if I understand Helen correctly, she supports all the things except for that one item, so we just need to make a note that although she supported the capital outlay, she does not support that one item.
That one item.
As written like
All right.
this, is that acceptable?
I would think that'd be,
we
As
can
long as it
amend it.
can be
It's okay with
written
Helen.
in the warrant that I reject the textbooks being taken from
There
capital
it is,
outlay.
it's written,
It is?
I just did.
you just put it in.
Technology is amazing.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for all your
Further discussion on Article 7. Okay, as amended,
Excuse me.
yep, go ahead, John.
I guess I've got more questions on, I'm trying to tie this funding in. First of all, on the master sheet.
Yep.
Everything in this column obviously doesn't foot to the 1778, because everything in yellow, you're bonding?
Correct.
Okay. Well, one issue I've got with the, issue question, I should say, is the master plan you're showing on the capital outlay plan, but you're showing funding by CPA. So should it be in this category?
So that's not yellowed, so 50,000 is coming out of capital outlay, the remaining funding is coming out of CPA.
Oh, there's more coming out of CPA, great. The other item, I guess, is I'm looking at all these numbers that I was kind of surprised at the 7.4 million. I can't tie that into this schedule at all. I see 2.4 for, looks like replacement mechanical systems. I see 1.2 for replacing of roofs. I'm just not getting in anywhere near the $7 million number.
Okay, so let me explain that. What you have is, if you look on the screen behind us, which is your piece, here you see a 15-year bond at $15 million. So that bond would include the fire station, the engines, the previous fire station approval of 2 town meetings ago, the middle high school roof and mechanical. So those items to go out to bond equals about $15 million. So doing that over a 15-year spread with our anticipated interest rate, this line, 80, becomes the debt service for that as it goes across. So that's going to cover, so those items, the school roof and the and the engines will be tied into one bond. And again, that's the debt service that can be funded within our piece.
Michael, also, I think you need, the numbers you're seeing on there, that's gonna be what we're paying. That's not the total cost, that's the number less the 50% that MSBA. So that's why, when you add those numbers up, you're not getting that 7 point whatever million.
And secondly, we also had, I think it was how much, Meg? $690-some thousand that I think we transferred from last year's account to cover this, that we had excess.
Yes, we had moved more into the capital and debt stabilization fund. We didn't use all of it, so well, it's actually more, but the money is there in the fund.
Okay, so round numbers, are we saying that the 1778 is cash going out the door, not bonding, just cash going out the door?
Cash
no
going
work
out the
is
door,
done?
yep.
I've got 900,000 going out funded through debt service. So I've got 2.6 million. I see 2.1 sitting in stabilization. So you're saying the 2.1, which is stabilization, doesn't include the extra $600,000 you're talking about? How do we, I'm just trying to try 3 numbers together. I'm spending 1.8, I'm financing 9, I have 2.1.
All right, we have to get you the 600, and I think it's $662,000. That's what was left over in the FY15
Yep.
money that we didn't spend
Roll
this
to
year. to roll it into this, because you remember last town meeting, because this was a new program, we wanted to get everything lined up, and many of the departments held off on their request, and then we said we'd roll those over into the FY16, so that's why we've moved that money forward. We'll get you that money, and it'll tie out your three numbers.
Great. And one other issue is that we're looking at some big numbers here. I mean, where are they coming from a bid process? I mean, for instance, who said it's gonna cost $7.4 million to fix this? Do we have third-party bid packages? Where do the numbers come from?
So, the school conducted the Habib study that went through and evaluated the different needs of the school and put together a rough estimate for what those costs would be. Our next step is with MSBA approval, is we will now move forward with some preliminary design and put out an actual bid package, so we'll get final numbers. I anticipate these numbers going low. I think when you do these initial studies, they're always high. But that's why the Capital Outlay Committee put that management mechanism in there, so that it's all run out of our office here for any of these large capital projects. So, no, there's no full design specs for doing the roof at this point, but that's the next step that would come for it.
And when was the Habib study done?
2013, I think it was, or
So it's rel-
2014.
So it's relatively current?
It's relatively current, yes.
So based on what you're saying then,
And also, one other item on that is, I know Dave Siegentoff has gone out and had some of those numbers reviewed by different contractors. Not that we have bids, but to make sure we're on the target number.
they're realistic.
Correct.
So based on what we just said then, we're basically maxing out the building capital and stabilization fund. 2.1 this year, 600 from carryover, 2.7, we're spending 1.8, we're gonna finance 9, so we have no capacity going forward, other than new personal property tax money coming in.
No. What we're saying is that when you go across, and you look at this yellow line, there's gonna be a dip in 2017, where we're only gonna have $624,000 available
New funds.
of new funds, but you'll see how that quickly starts to grow as debt rolls off and as new personal property comes in, assuming that we're only getting $55,000 in new personal property tax every year. So it's a very conservative number. Every year, we'll be going back and redoing this on a year-by-year basis to determine, what we're gonna be able to spend in FY17. But this is what we project over the next 10 years conservatively. I anticipate, and this is about 6.6%, I think it is, or 6% of what our target is. We're actually supposed to grow this fund up to 10%.
Okay, and one last question. You talked a little bit about a project manager. I know I'm a little bit sensitive to the fact with these big projects that we had issues with, the possible soft cost issue with the Daedalus study on the last school project versus now. We've had other issues. Who is controlling? This is a significant project. Who's gonna be the one that's controlling this again, making sure all the construction documents, AA documents, work orders, change orders are all teed up and negotiated?
My office will be responsible for that, so I will be.
So you will be.
Yes. I will be accountable for these.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any questions?
And just on that point, when it comes to some of these larger projects, we may have to bring in an outside project manager to assist in doing that, rightly so, but it will be all coordinated out of our office.
Great, I think you said one more question, Mr. Chairman? Oh, sorry.
Just looking at the Part B, we're appropriating the sum of 1.8 million for the purchase of the 3 engines and to rehabilitate and repair a new engine 4. Looking at the big sheet, you have the 1.8 million for the engines 1, 2, and 3, but then down line 22, it says rehab reserve engine 4 for 30,000 in FY17. So, is that, how do we include the rehab of engine 4 if we already have a 1, 2, and 3,
Actually, that will
1.8?
come out of next year's budget. Once this is approved, then when we go into the FY17 budget, that will be deleted because it's included in the $1.8 million.
Okay.
Is that correct, Chief?
And one last issue with regards to,
You said you were done last time.
sorry, I'm sorry, one last. I have many last issues. With regards to funding these $100,000 for for books. I'm just concerned about setting this precedent. I mean, when we first started the original Building Capital Stabilization Fund, it was only to be used for debt service on equipment and building infrastructure. Now it seems like we're gonna start bleeding into it for one-time issues and investments in these things. So are we violating the agreement that we set up at town meeting to set up these funds for equipment and building stabilization projects? Do we need anything from a third party saying that we can actually use this fund for what I would consider school district supplies?
Are we violating the fund? No. The textbooks, because they have a life expectancy for some of these of 5 to 7 years, and they are gonna be over $10,000, that it would fall within a capital configuration. These aren't that we're gonna purchase disposable notebooks or workbooks. These are actually the hard textbooks as part of the different program. Clearly, this year was an exceptional year, trying to figure out how we come up with a balanced budget following the financial management practices. Personally, I'm not sure this will continue into the future. I think this was done as a one-off for this year to try to get everything to work together, and try to get it so we wouldn't have to lay off any teachers, and still make sure that we had adequate information to give the students what they need for their education. But it does fall within the parameters, I mean, Ron's on the capital.
To that point, the school's original operating budget was $1.2 million, and they're down to $430,000, give or take 32,000. So that this was a one-time attempt, and we made it very clear that it was a one-time attempt to try to help them when there was such a large gap. And I think I speak for the rest of the Capital Outlay Committee, where we would think long and hard before this would happen again. So we're looking at it as a one-time. I think technically it's legal. In fact, we got a ruling that technically it's legal. But I think as a precedent, we're not looking to repeat it.
Is that ruling something we get a copy of? Was that a legal opinion?
Yeah, we got something from, yeah, we can get you that.
Great, thanks.
Okay, do we have any other questions on Article 7 as we amended it? Ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor of Article 7, the way it was amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? It's 5-0. We support Article 7 as it was amended. All right, and we're moving on to Article 8.
Jack? This is the CPA, CPC.
I can do a couple, but I'm gonna recommend that the rec committee speaks to forestry. They know a lot more about it than I do, that I can help.
I think that the selectmen have heard most of the projects, so maybe if we just want to focus on the forestry, and unless there's any additional questions.
I can speak if you need anything on the master plan or the pocket park for Route 58, if you need anything.
Didn't you just brief us on that last
I
week?
think so,
Yeah.
yeah. But
I
I
think-
really, with all due respect, I think that if a couple of you guys could come up and.
Yeah.
They've
Why
been to
don't-
all the
yes.
hearings, they've
Yeah.
worked with the
Yeah.
No, we,
neighborhoods, they've been through everything.
I had heard that they felt they would like to have some input tonight before the selectmen and the finance committee.
How you doing, everybody?
Hi.
My name's Skip Martin. I am the chairman of the Recreation Committee. Mary Ross, vice chairman, Recreation Committee. As far as the Forest Street project goes, we've been working for 2 years now, I'd say.
2+.
Yeah, with the CPA funds that we had received to do feasibility studies on, it started with Forest Street, Church Street, Savory Meadows, and Purchase Street. Yeah. So as far as Church Street and Savory Meadows, we deemed them that it would be too expensive to try to make anything work for recreation. And then we now focused our thoughts on Forest Street and Purchase Street. To be honest, what we need as recreation is we need to get some relief from our ball fields Forest Street is overgrown, and that's why we wanted to rehab it into something that we could use for our relief of our organizations. And we had VHB come in and give us studies, detailed studies, and they came in an estimate for Forest Street around $1 million to start. And we whittled it down. We spent nights and nights whittled it down to about 490,000. With that 490,000, it's comes with a well, irrigation, complete overhaul of the whole complex, and something that we could be proud of to have going forward for just like a basic park, and also have it for our organizations. And we had abutters meetings. We had abutters come in, and the response for us was overwhelming. I mean, we had people standing in the back of the room that were just fully supportive of doing something down there, whatever we could do.
Yep. Mary, comments? Nope. Okay.
The other part of it is we have followed all the rules of,
Community preservation?
yes, but
Yep.
using the numbers that we were given by VHB, and that's what our application for the money that we were asking for was based on the engineering firm's cost estimate. We have met with John Woods. We have some unofficial other estimates for parts of the project. We have someone who will do the well for considerably less money. John Woods has been wonderful in reassuring us that he will be able to, I know initially we knocked off $40,000 just on earth removal. It is our intent to go out further in the community to get other businesses in town perhaps that deal with
Excavation?
yes, all those kinds of things that we would need to develop the field to save as much money as possible. So we would say that to develop this project would not cost any more than the money that we asked for, is how we said it to the CPC.
Questions? Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I know as capital outlay, when we were reviewing this project, we were very happy with everything we heard, and then at one point, we heard something about phases, as if there was gonna be a second and third phase coming. And I believe Mr. Hunter answered this for us, because he went back and researched it. And while there might be additional elements that, all things being equal, if you had more money you'd like to add, with this grant of the $400 and somewhat thousand that it is, you will have a complete working ball field, so that if by chance the future phases you envision, which let's say they were more aesthetic in value, if they don't happen, we still have a good working ball field that even if the other phases don't go forward, it's still perfectly good and a valid project.
At first, with the phases that we started with was around the $1 million mark that we had. That was with play structures and lighting and paved parking lot, and that's why we dwindled it down to the money that it's at now. So we eliminated the phases, and that was where we came up to just a one-time thing.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? John?
I guess in this analysis, I guess I'm struck by the number, $461,000.
We were.
Let's just say it's done and I'm trying to envision it. Is it an irrigation system, parking, more parking that's currently there now? I mean, what are we gonna do? We're gonna dig it up, lay down soil, plant grass, just basic structures, no structures on it at all?
No, it's going to be, I have a plan over there if you'd like to see it. It's going to be a wide open field. It's going to have a fitness trail around it that you could walk around for, just walking. Just the odds and ends, picnic tables, stuff like that, but we are removing everything that's there now is unusable. So we're going to clear it out, irrigate it, put a well, and then we have a parking lot too. But the parking will be gravel. Yeah. So that's.
Unless we can get something donated.
So you've done borings to make sure you don't have any contaminated soil underneath there? Have you gone that
We
far
had
in the process?
VHB in to test everything for us. They did the survey, and did they do soil testing?
Did some preliminary soil testing, there'll have to be more detail.
Okay, should we wait on this until we have complete analysis of soil testing to make sure we don't have an issue that's gonna make this much bigger than $461,000?
We've been assured that this can move forward. I've passed this by another landscape architect. He thought these numbers were solid. I mean, it's expensive to build a park. It's not cheap. And these guys have knocked this down almost in half. It was over $1 million, the original. And we've gone back and forth with phone conferences trying to beat these numbers down. So I'm very confident. And I'm very confident that their analysis of the soils and what's there is accurate.
I think, to John's point, though, his concern was that if something turns up, you wouldn't proceed with the project.
of course not.
You'd have to come back and
If there's
revisit it.
something unforeseeable that happens, just like in anything, we would stop.
And do you have any numbers with regards to the cost per square foot, this project versus competitive projects, anything that we can benchmark it against?
No.
Okay, and with regards to the, if I remember correctly, 2 years ago, we did the $120,000 grant from the CPA to go and look at our parks, and we had the Savory Meadows issue and whatnot. I forget the other street, but we're saying that the entire town of Carver, the only option we have right now is an existing park that needs to be rehabbed. There's nothing, I'm thinking about the size of it, the location. Is it the best location for our funds?
Well, I'll let Skip, Skip, these guys met with every sports organization, at least twice I went to, probably more than that, about the need. Well, let me back up. Savory Avenue and Church Street just are not feasible. They're too cost prohibitive for the bang for the buck. Purchase Street really needs to be renovated, but it's an existing field that's usable. And that maybe down the road, you might be talking about that. So that left them with Forest Street. And they feel it will take off the burden that they're having with soccer, football, flag football. Am I missing something? And this will lessen the burden that they're experiencing. These people are playing on top of each other. They're in lines. They're going all different times. We need fields, and there's no other option in front of us.
I completely support fields.
Well,
Last
then, I think the rec commission's saying this is the best they got.
We don't have any other land
No.
at this time.
And what are we getting? I'm trying to envision the field. I know I've driven by it. Are we getting just one baseball field out of it, or two baseball fields?
It's a football soccer field you're gonna get.
So you could play a standard football game there. That's that big.
I'll let-
What's the acreage? I
It's
guess
a
is the
practice
question.
field. So therefore, they don't need to use Purchase Street for football practice, and they don't need to use Purchase Street for the smaller kids playing soccer.
So what's the acreage there?
It's a little over 3 acres.
3 acres. Okay. If you have anything with regards to, the cost per square foot, if you could let us know.
Probably.
Not tonight, but if you can get it over to us.
Ms. Hewens?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so, I know that I was on the committee years ago that built Purchase Street Recreation Field, and at that time, it cost over $200,000 to build Purchase Street. And then I believe, if I remember correctly, we had to go back and ask for a little bit more. And the drainage is just, it's not easy, and it's really expensive if you want to do it right.
Exactly.
So I just kind of wanted people to be aware that,
And that's why the number is where it is, I think, because we really want to do it correctly. We don't want to have 15 years down the line, we don't want it to look anything like it does now. We want it to be something that we'll be proud of going forward, that, the community needs it.
and I guess my point is that with those thoughts in mind, this looks pretty reasonable to me as a number.
Is Purchase Street sprinkled?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
It's pretty simple. You can't pull a field like Purchase Street out of use in order to rebuild it. You gotta go the new, and then if you're gonna proceed on something, you gotta have space to move that activity to that, so we need the additional space.
Correct.
It won't solve all of our problems
No.
in terms of field, because it's not that big. Purchase Street is the largest space we have. but it would certainly go a long way also to improving that community, that part of the community, which, when, we were very nervous, honestly, when they all arrived, because we weren't sure what
It'll-
kind of a reaction they were gonna have, and they were more than 200% in favor of rehabbing that piece of property. And we're willing to contribute, doing whatever, if we needed help.
And it does look kind of dumpy now.
It's in tough shape.
Mr. Chairman, I did attend 2 of the public hearings at the Recreation Committee, and I can confirm that everybody that was in attendance was fully in support of this project from the neighborhoods.
Mr. Chairman, just one question. I mean, we're looking at, like you said, $460,000, $490,000 to put in the field. Has there been any consideration as to the cost to maintain this field? I mean, you're talking 3 acres, irrigated, you're gonna mow it you're gonna have to mow it every week.
Right.
You're not gonna be able to
Yep,
put
and
it
that was
off.
part of our discussion with John Woods of the DPW. He said there's no problem going forward with their manpower, mowing it, making sure the irrigation's running right, emptying the trashes, stuff like that, so they can keep up with the upkeep.
And they're gonna be able to, blow out the irrigation at the end of the year
Right.
too.
Can I add to that? Actually,
Good.
I appeared in front of Capital Outlay, and Ron asked me that question, and when we met with John Woods, he's very familiar with this type of irrigation system, and is very comfortable with it.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Ellen? Yep.
I just first want to thank the Recreation Committee, because I know that you have spent countless hours, including Dan back there, who has been a passionate advocate about it. And I've gone back and forth, but I know this town was severely let down when they were pretty much told that Savory was going to be able to be a ball field.
We were too.
I mean, let's be frank. So we definitely need a field. I am just a little bit sensitive about statements like we've been assured that, based on our recent dilemma with the fire department, where they didn't, the person that we spent thousands of dollars on didn't put the inflationary numbers in. So, Jack, I guess my question is when you say assured that, I want to approve this, but I want to approve this based on the rec committee not having to come back and say, we thought it was gonna be this at the time, and, you said that you cut out a lot of things. Are those things that you cut out going to have to come to fruition later on down the road? When you mention lights, that concerns me that you took out lights. Like, will that be a safety issue? And then we're gonna have to, be back here saying, now we need $50,000 for lights. I don't mean to, because
No,
I'm
no.
really in support of this.
One of the things we changed the kind of irrigation.
Mary, please use the mic.
Oh, sorry. We changed the kind of irrigation we were doing. We felt that since it was not our primary field necessarily, that we didn't have to do the top of the line
No.
irrigation, not the irrigation system, the drainage, I'm trying to say. Their numbers initially came in with, I think it was like a 12-inch depth, and in talking with other contractors, you could go with like an 8-inch of the underground soil and things. So that's chopped numbers big time,
Time. Cheeks of Coke.
So that's how we cut. It's still going to be a completed field. We did not include, like we said, the tot lot kind of thing. But we have, in speaking with John Woods, we can have, the prison was going to help us by making some picnic tables, those kinds of things, that would not be maybe the ideal to have forever, but there would be something there for people to walk to, sit and enjoy. And if someone cuts them away, we're gonna hopefully nail them down to the ground.
I'm sure you will. But now, what about the lighting? Because I did hear that you cut out lighting.
Obviously, it's in a residential neighborhood, so we wouldn't have lighting as far as like, a bright ball field. What we initially had was when you pulled in, there were lights that lined kind of around the whole complex, like low ground lighting. we switched it to just maybe like one light at the entrance to prevent any kind of illegal activity or anything like that, so it'll be well lit. That, when we met with the abutters, that was a big issue for them, is of what is right now. It's a dark place where who knows what happens, you know, and now if we go in there and we have it lit and it's somewhere that, you know, people can see, it would help.
So you didn't cut all the lights?
No, we still have a little, it's gonna be illuminated from the road instead of being throughout the whole park.
I just don't want to let the residents down in the sense that we approve this tonight with, you know, hearing that this is it, we're not gonna need any more money, and then a year from now, we have to let the residents down again. We've been working on a lot of different, you know, contracts.
There is some contingency money in this estimate, and, you know, Vanessa Hagen's probably the most reputable firm in Massachusetts. We've had a lot of discussions with them about these numbers, and then I did pass it on to another landscape architect to see if it's reasonable, and he thought it was. You know, I don't know what else to tell you.
No, thank you.
And we came under budget in we didn't spend the 120,000.
Oh, you've been doing great.
Just
I
if
mean-
that gets us
I
in
mean, you've been
funds.
working so hard. You've been really working hard. We need another ball field, there's no doubt about it.
Michael?
Helen, I just wanted to comment that, just like the capital outlay articles, all the CPA articles will be funded and run through our office too. So we'll have the accountability of being in charge with the project management pieces.
Great, thank
So
you.
we'll be able to stay on top of that.
Andy?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, hello. Let's know a little bit more about the drainage system and what that entails and how much that costs. To be honest, we actually, a few years ago, it was the Finance Committee that recommended this at town meeting. We actually asked for this to be put on, so we're behind this. As John said, when we saw the number, we were like, wait a minute, this is only for that little park, you know? Because honestly, I think we were talking about having the town drag the soil out, put new soil, new grass, and just make it a general park, make it look better. Kids can go use it. So if you could just give us a little more info on the drainage system that's gonna be in use.
Basically what we got two different proposals. There was like the dream proposal and then reality. The drainage that they gave us before was an under drain that took up every inch of the field. But that was, I wanna say, $120,000. I have the line items in my plan if you wanna see it. But then there was another option of a drain that went around the complex. So basically what it'll be, the field will be kind of funneled for the water to drain out instead of through the soil, and that saved us a lot of money.
The through the soil version, would that just be a measure of engineering and placing the grades, the gradients down through the levels? Or, I mean, is a drainage system actually needed?
That's, yeah. Yeah.
What I think Skip's talking about, the original proposal was literally drainage underneath, pipes underneath the field.
Mhm.
Got rid of that, and now it'll be concave a little, so it'll slope
So it'll be
down
runoff.
at the end, and then they'll run off.
Oh, that's what you're talking, okay,
That design is really what
Yeah.
it is.
okay.
It's, the irrigation will be, you know, actual sprinklers and such that, again, John will.
I see, so it's basically gravity.
Just
all right,
trying to save
all
money.
right, good, all right. Okay, well, that answers some questions, thank
And
you.
I think we felt if we didn't irrigate and have the watering system and all of that, then it's going to look the same in 5 years.
Right.
You know?
Actually,
You're using it, so you've gotta water it.
right.
You know, otherwise it is gonna disintegrate.
And the funding aspect of it, is this coming totally out of CPA funds, or do we have a bond at all, or totally out of CPA? And Jack, or anybody else here who knows, how much, with the school coming forward and other things with the high school, I think the track, they haven't, they withdrew? Because I wanted to make sure with this project, how much a balance we have and the projected balance we would have for CPA funds for projects going forward in the future. Would anybody know that, or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe Bob Bentley had mentioned that there'll be a $1 million remaining balance. when he came in?
Meg, do you have that
Does
number?
that sound right?
I think we're at 1.7 now.
Yeah.
So if you funded all these, we'd be about $1 million with another allotment in October, which would probably bring us to 1.4. And I don't know if this is accurate.
And
But
plus the fact that they'd be looking for the playgrounds for the school,
Right.
not for another 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Given the length of construction time, so there'd be more than adequate time to go ahead and build up the CPA fund, assuming, of course, nothing happens to that fund.
Right. Depends on the reimbursement.
Right.
But we did ask that question, Andy, so it seems like there's ample money.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time reading your reports, but you did send me a lot of reports on the CPA fund, which I'll gladly send over to Andy. The, I see the undesignated, yeah.
Which is the balances by first.
Yeah.
Then I'm
Yeah.
gonna close out revenues and expenditures. Obviously, revenues are gonna be more than the expenditures. And then subtract out, there's two of these items here coming from undesignated. So take that beginning balance, assume that it's gonna go up, subtract those out, and then that's what we're gonna knock over at the end of the year.
All right, just want to make sure there was enough
Yeah,
money in there for future use.
actually, I think it'll be, I mean, it's a pretty decent size undesignated fund balance right now.
Yeah, it's over $1 million, yeah.
Mr. Dunham,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve Article 8 as written.
I'll second.
okay, further comments, discussion? All right, all those in favor of Article 7, say aye.
No,
Aye.
8. We're on 8.
I'm sorry, 8. I'm getting
It's
blurry.
late.
8. Article 8, Community Preservation Committee report, recommendations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Mr. Carter, do you need us Thursday?
I think we're all set.
You sure?
Yeah, I think we got, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Article 9.
Article 9 is our standard revolving account article. We put those into a table this year, so they're easier to understand. But this is the same article that you have year over year, and it has to be voted every year.
Make a motion to approve Article 9?
Second.
All right, discussion, questions? All those in favor of Article 9, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, 5-0. Article 10.
Municipal aggregation of electricity, this is where you had the Serped report presentation at your meeting on Tuesday. Was it Monday? Was it Monday? Monday it was.
Yeah, it was not the Thursday one, it was
Yes.
the Monday one.
So,
Okay.
for those in the audience, what this does is this allows the town of Carver to join, is it 19 other communities, Jack?
Right now it's 14, and one other community is considering it like you are.
Okay.
So it'll be 16 potentially.
And then allows for the communities to go out and bid for lower residential electric rates and for small businesses through the economies of scale by putting that together as one package. Every homeowner has the ability of opting out of this, and if we don't get good prices, we don't have to move forward with it. But again, it does allow for every individual homeowner to opt out of this, and there is a hope that this will have some savings townwide for every resident that you wouldn't be able to get on your own because of just being a small homeowner. By putting everybody together, we should be getting better prices.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend the article.
Second?
Okay, discussion?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I've
Ms.
thought
Moore?
about this, and I can't agree with it. The reason I decided, the other night, I was like, wow, this sounds really good. But I really thought about it, and I said, I am really concerned that this is an opt-out provision, that it's not an opt-in. And I think it's taking the freedom from a resident to say they don't want to do this. I mean, I know that you said they can opt out, but it makes me nervous that they're being forced to at least temporarily opt in. And I really believe that, I feel better if the residents have their own free will to be able to search out different energy service providers, as I did, because I believe, Jack, you said that it was gonna end up being like 10 cents per about,
No, to your point, I don't think we know what it's gonna be.
exactly,
You know,
but,
it could be anything, but I think the point, and I don't want to interrupt what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I think the point was that when you have a large group negotiating a
Yeah.
price, there's a strong likelihood they're gonna be able to get a better price than you and I as individuals can get.
Yeah.
So that, but anyway, go ahead.
no, thank you. I just think if this was proposed in a different way, that it was an option for the residents, not being forced on them. Again, I know that it says that you can opt out, but I don't think a resident should have to make a phone call to say, I want to opt out. I think it should be more of having the voluntary ability to opt in if they want to. So I have to say that I'm going to have to disagree with this one at this time.
Okay.
Until
Mr.
there's
Clark?
more history on this, what the different municipalities can save on it.
And I understand what Helen's saying, but to me, I see this as an opportunity where government can help its citizens by getting a rate that, and I tell you, I mean, we talked about the fact that after the rates shot up in January, I think we all got a nasty surprise in January with how big the rates went. Next thing I know, I was getting a call every day from some company, and some of them are fly-by-night companies. And I'm concerned that some of our citizens, taxpayers, will have gotten deals that they're going to find out the hard way are bad deals. So I guess I have a level of confidence, since it's going to be the Board of Selectmen that are going to be, agreeing to this contract ultimately, that we're going to ask and do a lot of due diligence on this, and that I wouldn't move forward with it if I thought for a minute that this wasn't a deal that the average resident would not be able to duplicate out there on their own. So, but I understand your concerns. I don't like the opt-out either. It's sort of like getting in one of those music clubs where you don't want it to come every month. You have to call them, or else the book, then you forget to call in time, and the record arrives, and now what are you gonna do with it? Because no one has records anymore. So that,
Yeah,
so I understand what you're saying, so.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to belabor the point on this because it's getting late, but I think the residents are smart enough to do their own homework. And, I mean, the regulations in the banking industry is so overwhelming that now the lenders have to say whether a refinance is in the borrower's best interest. I don't agree with something like that because I believe a resident is smart enough to figure it out on their own. So I believe that a resident is smart enough to do their own research, and if they make a hiccup and they don't save as much as they thought they would, but at least they made the decision on their own. So,
And again, just, we can agree to disagree, but I guess my point is, I don't think they'll get the opportunity to get a rate as low as what we'd be able to negotiate on a larger basis.
well, Jack had mentioned 10 cents, and I just.
Well, again, I think they're
an
just throwing
estimate.
numbers out there.
No, I understand, but that's what I've locked into with another energy company for a year. I mean, so if that.
Well, a year ago, according to my bill, I was at 7 cents. Now I think I'm at 20.
Let's agree to disagree, Mr. Clark.
Okay.
Come on, we
Okay.
can go, maybe we'll go for a 3
Additional-
for tonight.
Additional comments,
We'll
questions?
Do you want to
Disagree twice.
rephrase that?
John Yella.
Just, conceptually, I don't really have as much a problem with the opt-out, just speaking for myself. I think if I can save some money, I'm gonna try and do it. But my question has to do with service levels, meaning, am I still with, like, for instance, N-Star, you keep your same vendor? God forbid,
Same carrier.
same carriers, the snow emergency, the going out, the same vendors show up to fix, so there's really no change to me, other than the fact that hopefully I get this great 20-cent discount, right, Jack? There's two, if I get some great discount, but if I don't want it, I just make a phone call to the entity.
Send in a card, I believe.
John,
You have to send in a card.
Eversource N-Star is only the carrier. It delivers the electricity to you, so that
Transmission.
won't change. And this is just who generates the electricity. If right now, all of us, if you don't have another carrier or another vendor, if you will, the default's Eversource. So they'll go find somebody.
Excuse me, just a question on the card. This organization is doing this, they'll mail a card out to every citizen?
Correct.
And so to opt out, The citizen has to just simply fill out the card
They'll
and
be
send it back. So it's
self-addressed
not even a
on
phone call, it's just sending the card back.
Could make a phone call if you wanted. And if you joined and you found a better deal, you can still opt out again. You can only opt out twice, or once, if you will. If you
Okay.
joined and said, okay, I'll take it, and then, or never checked it off, and then a month later or 2 months later, you can call them up and opt out.
The program is organized by Serpent,
Yes, they
who
vetted,
is our planning agency.
that's correct.
Right. And they were explaining that if they did the opt-in, it would be very difficult to get the numbers they needed.
Yep.
So that's just a sense thing, I guess. Any other questions?
I have a question, Jack. So this is through Serpent, but my thinking about this, I kind of look for where the rub is, you know, but with Serpent, is there any type of authority they have over the citizens as power users? If you say, if they say, well, Jack, you're using too much power this month, we're gonna raise your rate?
No, that's not regulated by Serpent, that's actually regulated by, what the heck's their company? What is it?
The utilities?
No, there's a knee pool or something like that. It's actually in Holyoke, that's why I know it. No, the selectmen would be signing a contract on behalf of the town or the citizens for whatever rate you feel is appropriate. Interestingly enough, you gotta get, well, right now, if you join 15 towns to agree on this. So if a couple don't want it, they don't take it, whatever that rate is.
And if I could just add, Serpent is not a regulatory agency.
That's correct.
Right, but they are bringing it to us, so, like I said, I look for the rub.
Yeah,
And
what
so-
they did, Andy, is they went out to
Call me
bid.
suspicious, but
They went out to bid to find a company that does these type of things. And, hey, there's people that do this, and it's called, a company called Good Energy. And they're a broker. They will, on your behalf, go and try to find the best deal possible for the residents and businesses, I may say, if they want to join.
can they solicit the citizens then? Because I had a energy audit that I signed up down at the farmer's market down here, and it was great. They helped me with some different things, but I got them calling me every, month.
I don't know the answer. I know what you're saying, and I guess that never came up, did it, Michael? I don't know.
I'm wondering if they're looking for like a giant client list.
Well, they're gonna get their list from N-Stars, what they're gonna do. Every customer that N-Star, Eversource, has lines going to, so that list is there. I don't know how public that is. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer. It's an interesting, I don't know.
I think I'm with Helen. I would feel better opting into a good program that my neighbors are saying that is good, to opt out. If they don't mail me the card, Ron, I'm up the river with.
No, you just call in that case.
I know, I'm joking.
And
I'd
you can
feel
be
more-
sure we'll have a public hearing when this comes up,
Right.
if they present us something good, and, if it turns out that they're coming in at 12 cents and Helen and I are sitting here at 10 cents, then it just doesn't make sense to move forward.
I think, ultimately, it sounds great, it sounds really good, but I guess just the way I've experienced life is that hardly ever do you find something or some entity willing to do you good without them receiving something in return.
Okay, Andy, you go.
So, more of a comment. I completely disagree with Helen and Andy, because I think as a group, the benefit of a group coming in and having people on the outside looking in, we've already made the commitment to whomever's gonna provide this. So if we get a great rate and you're on the outside looking in, maybe you don't get that option because you didn't go with the group. The bigger the group, the better the discount usually.
If
And at
it
the
had
end,
the opt-in versus opt-out, I would be in
Right.
full support of this.
One more question. Bill?
I was just wondering, the length of the contract, and like Ron said, the introductory offer and.
It's a 2-year contract. And then they would go back out to bid.
And again, you can opt out during that 2-year period. If you opt out, you have to wait for the 2 years to go. But keep in mind, this is gonna be voted by the people at town meeting. So, I mean, that's where the choice is. We're just bringing this forward for the public to determine if this is what they want to do. And we're giving them a choice at town meeting, and they could vote for it or not vote for it.
And where there's no funding liability to the town, I could see the finance committee just not taking any action on it, you know, if you want to, because there's no money changing hands, there's no cost to the taxpayer as far as funding coming out from the town.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a very valid point about the town meeting is gonna ultimately vote on it, and this is something that is really for the resident. So, I mean, I will vote yes tonight with the full understanding that everyone is aware that I don't really agree with the opt-out and that it really should be opt-in, and people should be concerned about that, because usually down the road, there's a contingency to that, so.
Mr. Chairman, with that in mind, I move that we go ahead and approve the article.
Okay,
I could just add that, again, it's a 2-year contract. If we sign up and it's 10 cents and then suddenly electric
Right.
rates fall dramatically, it's not like you're locked in. At most, you know, you'll have a month's notice and you're out. It's not as if you're bound to this for 2 years.
okay, we're,
But you don't,
don't
but,
have to
but you
Moving
don't
on.
mean it.
we are voting on Article 10. We
Voting
completed
support
our
of
discussion. All those in favor of Article 10, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is 5-0 unanimous. Article 11.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, at our meeting on Thursday, Mr. Gray presented the 4 articles that the Governance Committee is recommending, which you see in print here. And the one that has been expanded is Article D, which would end up being a home rule petition to change the constable from elected to appointed, and to move that down to 3 members is the same home rule petition language that was used for the town treasurer collector before.
Okay. What's your pleasure, folks?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Discussion, questions? All right. All right, we had a pretty in-depth meeting with them.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 11, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is 5-0. 5-0? Yep. Okay.
Article 12 is the Cable Television Fund. I'm actually going to ask that you guys hold off on voting on this tonight, because there's still some work that's being done by our
Okay.
town accountant.
Moving right
I
along.
don't think we'd vote on our half-hour meeting prior to town meeting.
Correct.
I got no problem with that right now.
If I could just add, just so people know what it is that the DOR came out with a ruling in October, and they said that, you know, public access corporations, just as an extra level of accountability, because most of them are all 501c3s like ours is in town. We just, as everyone knows, merged with Halifax and so forth. They've just added an extra layer of accountability so that the monies, when they're paid from Comcast, used to go directly to the cable facility, now, cable entity, now they'll go to the town, and then the town gives it to the cable entity. So it's just a pass-through, but it's an extra layer because numbers are getting bigger as time goes on, as subscribers go up and so forth. So it's just an extra layer of security. So we'll be plugging in, I think the number's gonna be about 178,000 is gonna be the flow-through number. It can only be used for PEG access, so it's not as if the town can usurp it and put it towards snow and ice. But although I'm sure that attempt may be made.
You've been
So
waiting on
that-
that one.
Anyway, so that's what it's gonna be. So I think they're working on the wording just to make sure it's right, but that's all it is. It's just a pass-through. It'll come into the entity, turned over to the town, and then turned back to the entity so that we can run the studio.
We got
Get any
zinged.
tax money out of that?
Okay,
Make a motion at table
Yeah.
12.
Second, okay, third.
all right, any other discussion? All those in favor of tabling Article 12, say aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. Article 13, land transfers. And we got
Jack.
we have a map with us today.
Motion to recommend.
Yep, is there a second? Okay. Motion's made and seconded, discussion, explanations.
these are well, actually, I think there's 6 parcels total that.
Can you pivot the microphone towards you, please?
There's 6 parcels that were taken by tax title, by back taxes. The TOPS Committee, Town-Owned Properties Committee, has been deliberating over these for, some of them for years. And the Oak Drive, the Meadow Street, and the Shoestring Road, we've identified abutters who are interested in purchasing them. So we are asking town meeting to give them to the selectmen, and then either have the treasurer auction them, you do an RFP, one or the other, so we can try to get them back on the tax rolls. The North Main Street is actually a 1.6 acre lot. It's right behind Frosty Dog, in between Frosty Dog across it's technically North Main, and the Carver Glass. And it's a nice piece of open space, developable property, so we think there's an economic development potential there. So we're gonna ask if town meeting gives it to the Board of Selectmen, to enter into an agreement with the redevelopment authority to try to sell it. And the last one is 2 parcels on Montello, right at the entranceway to where Aubuchon's is. It's on the right. And we've taken those by tax title, and they may have some use for DPW to try to improve that interchange, or that intersection of Montello and North Main. So we want to give it to the Board of Selectmen so they can hopefully assign it or do whatever. We're not sure exactly, but we want to hold those 2 for potential infrastructure improvements.
All right, any questions? Okay. All right, you ready to vote? All those in favor of this article, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, Michelle. Support, thank you.
Jack, you're up again.
I noticed.
These are the ones you signed with.
I did, and if, you know.
Make a motion to approve Article 14?
Second.
Well, we went through these
Yeah,
a
we
week
did.
ago.
We've gone through this one, so.
Is there anything new?
For many
No,
pages.
14, well, no, there's nothing new. They're all the zoning articles, yes. I'm a little,
Finance Committee have any questions?
Well, I have a hard time with these schedules, but,
Just give me, the planning board voted these all unanimously.
5-0.
Yeah.
so we're saying, is this grid that I'm looking at right now, the only
Yes.
change is adding a column to the right, SSID?
No,
Nothing
well, there's a series of article or bylaw changes, if you will. The first one, A, is to change or create a new district that we're gonna call Spring Street Innovation District. The second, B, is to add, if, all the way to the right, the SSID.
Yep.
And then all the uses. And these mirror the Green Business Park, which is up in North Carver on the old Whitworth property. Then the next article is to actually add the SSID to the dimensional requirements. Then the next article is to add the SSID to the sign bylaw. And then lastly, and this was at Koppelman and Page's request, is that we actually have a sub-article that actually lists the parcels, and then a map. So it's a series of articles to create this district.
So this district, and maybe I should know, but I don't, it's more like just another business district
Correct,
to focus in on the Spring Street area?
correct.
Yeah, I think I'm all for it.
And then, John, and then the 2 other ones are very simple ones. We're gonna allow municipal or facilities to be increased in height to 40 feet, and that was because the fire station and the potential school, any of the options, I'm not even sure where that's at, but they all will need to be increased in height, so we had a little footnote there we had to add. And then the last one is to allow dwelling units on the ground floor in a village. It seems like we're getting a lot of interest in these type of mixed uses in these village districts, and especially in North Carver. And hopefully we're gonna see North Carver come alive again, the North Carver Green especially.
Move the vote.
Discussion, Article 14, all right, all those in favor of Article 14, say aye.
Andy wanted to ask a post-vote question.
Well, he can still ask it. We voted 5-0, go ahead, Andy, we'll,
I just had a quick question for Jack. Jack, on the new district, this is just out of personal curiosity. What do you list as, places of assembly? You have it down as no. Is that for like churches, or is that for like fraternal clubs?
Churches are exempt, that's for clubs.
Like Elks, Lions, that type of thing? Okay.
Churches are exempt.
So if anybody wanted to purchase a piece of property up there, or a building up there to have their club away from residences?
We didn't think it was an appropriate use in a business park.
So this is just gonna be business, it says innovation, is it, I was gonna ask you what the,
Now, we're trying to,
sound good?
sexy name or something,
Okay. Just curious about that one question. Thank you.
okay.
Don't go anywhere, Jack.
Well, no,
Onward,
actually.
Article 15, non-money petition articles.
Tracking with the planning board, who unanimously recommended against Article 15, I'll make a motion to not approve Article 15.
Not approved.
Correct.
I'll second for discussion only.
Okay,
These
Discussion.
are all, these are petition articles, correct? So to me, I don't think we even need to take any action. I would just not take, my recommendation is not take any action at all on these.
so would you like to make an amendment?
I
to
move
that
that,
effect?
make the following amendment that the board takes no action on Article 15.
All right, so we're considering an amendment to take no action. Anybody want to
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, discussion on this? All right, you ready? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? It's 4-0.
I'll make a
One
motion to
person
take no
absent.
action on Article 16, following the same logic. If it applies to 15, it applies to 16.
Then, fine, go ahead.
Do you not agree that it would?
No.
No, you don't agree? You can't use it on 15 and then say it doesn't apply to 16.
You made the motion, I'll second it.
Okay, discussion on that. So we're taking no action on Article 16. If we
Correct.
voted, all right? All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye?
Opposed?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
I only get one vote?
Just real quick,
You don't even know what real quick means.
Ron's ready to hit me.
Please.
Go ahead.
I'm kidding. Aren't these money petition articles that we approve every year?
Yeah, I think so.
I guess that would be the only difference between 15 and 16. I know that you said
They're
that.
both petition articles.
I understand, but we've been voting 16 for 20 years now.
We'll have an opportunity on next
Okay.
Monday night to
If
vote.
that will make-
You can
if
vote on this,
that
you
will
can
make
vote
you
on this
happy.
option any way you want.
Okay,
Sarah, the motion on the table is to take no action on Article 16,
That's
like
fine.
the
We
board
can
just did
wait.
on Article 15.
All
to be
right?
consistent, that's fine.
So, in other words, you'd be leaving it up to town meeting. All those in favor of that, Article 16, no action, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. We vote no action on 16. All right. 17.
Article 17 is the article on the healthcare. Kindly note on the screen here is that we're just fixing a typo where it said after June 30th, it was on or before. What we did is before we went to print, Labor came back with some language changes in Section 2 that still met the intent of what everyone's trying to do. So we included that, but somehow got a few words jumbled up. So this is also the recommendation of Labor.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And again, just so people are aware, back about 40-some-odd years ago, the town of Carver failed to take certain actions that were necessary in order to comply with the law and whatnot. And so what this does is to correct that lack of activity for the benefit purposes. And we wanted to make sure that those folks that had retired and were depending on their reimbursement for health insurance, that they were protected. So what this does is to protect them, all current retirees, and it also says that anybody that has been in the system and was looking forward to retirement, if they retire within the next 10 years, they also will still get the benefit they've been counting on. After 10 years, that's the 75% reimbursement for health insurance for retirees will drop to 50%, which helps address our OPEB issues going forward. So that we regretted having to take that action, but we have to start somewhere in order to do that. So this corrects something that the town missed 30 or 40 years ago, and also locks in the benefit for our retirees.
He's blaming me because I was a selectman 30, 40 years ago.
I'll make a motion to
Oh.
approve.
Second?
We've had a lot of discussion about this.
I think I have to recuse myself on this.
It's correct, only
I
three
have-
people.
I have to recuse myself as well.
So maybe, Mr. Clark, you could continue the...
There's been a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. See how that's done, Dick? We've been out of here an hour ago.
Ron's a little overtired
Mr.
tonight, don't
Mr.
you
Chairman,
think?
that, I believe, completes the warrant. I would really appreciate if we could have like about a 10-minute break.
How about 5?
All right, 5.
Okay, 5-minute break. And
This is
then
a feisty board. There hasn't been any agreement on anything.
we'll see you later there, FinCom. Thank you for being here.
Way out and leave now.
Thank you for being here.
Apparently, I really have to work my body a lot. Apparently, I give things away.
No. Sure. When you're holding 2 toys in your hand for half an hour.
Good night, good night. All right, the next item, are you all set, Pete? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the Board of Selectmen comment period. So, who'd like to start tonight? Alan?
Yeah, I'll start this time. First, I'd like to remind the residents that, oddly enough, I didn't find out this morning, there's a new state law in effect.
Oh.
That if you're running your windshield wipers, you have to have the headlights on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know what's coming. I happened to see it online, so I said,
What's
what
the
was
connection?
this?
A surcharge from the insurance company.
Right, it's a $5 fine, but it's a surchargeable offense to your insurance, so it could cost a lot more.
So do you think the insurance lobbyists won out?
Let's go easy on the insurance companies. Just explain to me, I haven't heard this law. If I want to turn my wipers on,
If you have to turn your wipers on, you have to have your headlights on, not your running lights,
Not
the
your running
headlights.
lights, that's right.
Also, if the visibility is less than 500 feet, you have to have your headlights on.
I'm just curious.
I'm just passing on.
I mean,
the-
I suppose there's no reason I'd have my wipers on a sunny day driving down the road, so, but. I'm just-
Actually, being a meteorologist, I can tell you there are times when you have showers, you need it on. It just, I'm
All right,
just,
I don't want to beat this to
Right.
death, but I mean, if I want to squirt the windshield wiper on my window to clean it, I got to put my lights on first.
can I
and
move
then
on,
turn the
please?
wipers
Because
on?
there are a couple things I really need to get to.
Aspects
wants
of the
me to
law.
speed
Like,
up
what
the
do they do
votes?
then?
Speed the votes.
Not going there, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dunham, continue.
I'd also like to make a request of the chairman and vice chairman to work through their counterparts on the school committee to schedule a meeting as soon as practical, but no later than mid-May, for a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. And from the administrator, if we can get that meeting going, if you could provide some, or through Meg, some kind of cost analysis benefit of potential savings and cost benefit of a combined facilities, what would be the benefit to the town for that? And then finally, one last thing, I'd like to have an executive session at the end of next meeting to discuss the PEC agreement and where we go forward with that, because I do believe that runs out at the end of June, so I'd rather get into negotiations with the union a lot sooner than later on that. And that's all I have for right now.
Okay, we keep coming my way. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. I just wanted, in case people didn't get it tonight, we voted on the articles for town meeting, which is scheduled for this Monday, April 13th. That's 6:30 PM at the high school. And also, don't forget town election, April 25th. Polls are open 8 AM to 6 PM. Even though it's an unopposed slate, your vote is still important.
Mr. Clark? I'll go last.
Just that we are planning, just more chat news, CHAT, the new studio. We're hoping to have an open house for both the communities in Carver and Halifax in June. We're getting the house in order. I believe that the executive director told me that just in time for town meeting, we'll be able to broadcast town meeting live. Not that we don't encourage you to attend in person, but if by chance you can't be there, you should be able to watch it live on Chat TV.
Very good. Ms. Maroney?
Thank you. This is just last call for the Common Core workshop reservations that I have been advocating for over the past few weeks. It is being held at Our Lady of Lourdes, Friday, April 10th at 7 p.m. And I just want to let people know that I think we may be getting very close to capacity at this point. So what we are asking is, if you have stated that you're going out on Facebook, if you could email me or phone me at the 866-9253 number, so I can get a formal reservation, because we are really trying to monitor the count, because the capacity is 125 people at this hall, so we have to be very careful not to go over that. So it's the people that have formally registered through me, either through email or through the phone number I just gave, that will have, first priority of being able to sit in on the Common Core. Again, we will allow walk-ins, but if we are over capacity at that point, it's gonna be very difficult to turn someone away. So we're really hoping that everybody will register in advance. And if anybody wants to get just a little bit of an exposure of these two speakers that are coming, Jeff Cooner on 680 AM radio station will be interviewing one of the speakers tomorrow morning at 7:05 a.m., Sandra Stotsky, just to give you an idea that she's a very educated woman. That's about it on that. The other thing is, in preparation for our next conversation with this, which is it's two more, the town administrator evaluation, I just want to point out that we had an administrator here for 16 years, and I think he had one evaluation, and I don't think that was an open session. So it's been very important to a couple of the selectmen that this gets put out in open session. I just implore all of our selectmen that an evaluation, yes, it can be open because we are a municipality. However, this is an evaluation from a boss to an employee. I think the comments should be very general, and if you have anything that may harm Michael, that I think it should be discussed in private, that I think this should be a general summation of what the overall board felt. So I just implore you that this is a man's career, that I think we should be very careful of what is said out in open session. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, you're all set, Ms. Maroney? Okay.
I am.
I did want to mention, I just heard today that one of our custodians retired, Steve Fager. He worked for a number of years for us, and he was a good worker, and we're hoping that he enjoys his retirement, and we will miss him. Saturday at 1 o'clock is the graduation for the new volunteer fire department people that have been going through training for the last few months. And that will be at 1 o'clock. And again, as Sarah has mentioned, don't forget town meeting Monday night, April 13th. And remember, it starts at 6:30.
You mean that email I got saying Tuesday night?
I know, I was,
Don't know where
No,
that came from.
well, anyway. Okay, good. All right, and I would like to move our town administrator evaluation segment right after public comment period. Would anybody be opposed to that?
I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which would be governance committee extension of the committee's term.
Mr. Chairman, can we table that to after town meeting?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I mean, anybody opposed to that?
No?
Okay, well,
Make a motion on that.
if you want.
I move we table the governance committee extension
Of their term of office.
of their term of office until after town meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, 5-0. Okay, now we're down to discussion and vote on participation of somebody from the Board of Selectmen on negotiations with the school committee? Is that it? Okay,
Close. Since I brought this up last meeting, I'd like to continue that, but in deference to Mr. Clark's concern about not having the vote portion available 48 hours in advance, I've got no problem putting that off to the next meeting, but I would like to give you, the board, a report of what my discussions with the superintendent and one other member of the school committee was.
If I was gonna suggest, Alan, that we could have the discussion tonight and even have it on the agenda for Monday's meeting. We have a meeting on Monday, so.
No, there's no big rush. You know, having the vote can actually wait till our first meeting after town meeting.
Okay.
You know,
Should
because
be,
basically,
third Tuesday of the month.
right. See, originally there was, they were having union negotiations on tomorrow, but after talking with the superintendent, those are almost at a conclusion, so it'd be kind of fruitless to have anybody jump in at this late point, but they do have 2 other contract negotiations opening up in May. So to me, that would be the time to actually go through with this. Anyway, in the way of a little bit of background, again, this is Mass General Law 150E, Section 1.
Excuse me.
And basically, what it's saying is, the chief executive officer of a city or town or his designee shall participate and vote as a member of the city or town school committee. This is for union negotiations, so not only be involved in the negotiations, but also to have a vote. I was a little concerned by the way this was written and had conversation with town council, and because of the fact that it should be, the way it's written, it would be the town manager or town administrator would be the person to do it. However, since it is written as or his designee, technically Michael would be able to designate somebody else to go ahead and take his position. I really feel this is important because, true, we've never had it before, we've never done it before, but I really strongly feel that there is information that a member from municipal side would be able to provide the school committee as they go into their negotiations with any of their unions of the school department that they don't have access to now. They a lot of times they're negotiating in kind of a vacuum. So, with this in mind, I was having a conversation on a different subject with a member of the school committee, and I happened to mention this idea, and that person was all in favor of it. Saw value in having somebody, the Board of Selectmen, town administrator, however we end up doing this, being a member of the negotiating team and having a vote, because that way, the municipal side is going ahead and having some input into this. It's not, and also, it also gives a chance for who's ever representing us from the municipal side to get a better feel how school side is going ahead with these negotiations. So if we get a question, a lot of times these contracts are approved and we don't hear about them for weeks or months afterwards, and yet citizens are gonna come to us to ask us why, why did the school committee go this way? Why was this contract approved as written? By being part of the process, we'll be able to much better answer those questions from the general public. So, I also did talk to the superintendent. It was a wide-ranging conversation. We ended up covering more than this topic. She did, right off the bat, said, yeah, we have by state law the ability to do this. Now, she did go ahead and reiterated that we'd never done it here. She didn't know of any towns or communities that did have this, but she recognized that we could. And I explained again, my rationale that I'm looking at as to why this will be a good thing for all involved, as far as openness and things like that. And I got kind of a concurrence, and then it was a little bit later on, there was another couple of negative comments, and I'm not gonna go into detail on it. And again, I would want to explain why I would bring this forward, you know, because again, so we can provide input to the school, not trying to tell them how to run a negotiation, you know, not telling them what to do, just providing input from the municipal side during the negotiation process, so we're not hearing about it and we're not having input after the fact, after the horses left the barn and the doors then closed. We parted with probably, I best categorize it as not overly thrilled with it, but again, recognizing if we want to do this, we're all well within our rights and with the state law. And when the state law pretty much says, part of the wording says, you know, basically it's saying we shall have a representation as part of the school committee on the negotiating and shall have a vote in the contract. You know, just because we haven't done it, I think it's time we do it. So that's my rationale. I'll be happy to entertain any questions, and like I said, I would like to see, you know, everybody think on it and have us a vote on it at our next regularly scheduled meeting.
I would just like to thank Alan for doing all that work on that, and I personally, I don't know about, I can't speak for the rest of the board, interpret your enthusiasm almost as a volunteering effort to be that representative on the...
Well, first we'd have to have, if we decide to go this way on the vote, it would require, you know, the town administrator to go ahead and say, yes, I would like to appoint whoever.
Well, the town administrator doesn't make the appointment.
Yes, it actually does, because the way the law is written, the first priority for this position is the town manager / town administrator, and it's written with, in the absence of, then the chairman goes ahead or his designee takes this
So the
position.
town administrator would either say, I'm interested in participating or not.
Right.
If he's not, he doesn't make the appointment, then it
he or
defers to
she,
the...
No, he or she could make the, choose his designee. I would assume it would be with the cooperation and agreement of the chairman of the board. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
right.
I did want to make a quick comment. I would really like to have one of us maybe go to the next school committee meeting and explain to them our thoughts on it. Just as an outreach to them. I know we can go forward to it, and I know it's a good idea. I like the idea, except I just want to start reaching out to the school committee and try to work a little better with them.
so would you like someone to go there and talk during their open comment, public comment period? Because that would be the time.
You could get put on the agenda very easy,
Maybe not.
or me, or you, or somebody.
Well, I think Alan has put the work into it, and I think that you would be a great representative for us at the school committee meeting, but
Well, he's knowledgeable about it, he studied it too.
yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the comments keep coming up about trying to work with the school committee. I don't know whether it's because we're bringing up a lot of challenges that we have to sometimes not agree, but even at our budget meetings, two of the school committee members and Liz concurred with Sarah when Sarah had said that we should be one, the town shouldn't be the school shouldn't be the town. And I think this is a way of us coming together and being able to be at these meetings, being able to, you know.
I just think
So I
that
think this is all good.
their problem is that they feel like we don't explain things to them before we do them.
Right, and that can
And
be
so
improved.
that's
right.
why I'm just saying
And I
that.
would have
And
no
and-
problem if you, the
and I
board,
think that's
if
a
you
great
and
idea.
the board would want me to approach the school committee
Just
to
explain,
explain, just as I've
Right.
explained it here.
we more or less have to do it.
No, and I agree with
mean,
that, the communication should be in advance.
Because one of the things I did point out, because it was pointed out during my discussion with the superintendent, that, you know, whoever's coming in from the board would not have that much knowledge about how, you know, they go about their contracts and whatnot. And I pointed out, what better way to learn? Because that will give us a voice that'll go ahead and can bring back, because we'll get some insight to what they're thinking and their point of view that we can share with the rest of the board. So I still see that as a plus.
Agreed.
Okay, we're not making any motion or voting on anything on this, right?
But the action item is for me to
Yeah,
try to get on the agenda and
Yep.
because we won't be able to vote on this until, what's the date of our next meeting? Anybody know? 21st?
it's April.
Next one after that.
21st, April 21st.
Yeah, April 21st, and then the next time would be,
So if we put this on our agenda for April 21st, some small discussion and then a vote?
I just don't know if the school committee will be voting, meeting between now and then.
I doubt it.
So it
I
may
would-
have to be put off until our,
Their first meeting in April? I mean, May.
May.
yeah. I'd have to check with the chairman of the school committee and the,
So we will
Principal.
have had a chance to vote on this when we go to them.
we can, but by the same token, if you want to hold off, that, you know, that's the pleasure of the board.
Well, if negotiations are starting up on other things in May, we may want to have someone in place prior to that.
That's, I'm,
Okay.
I would have no issue appointing any member of the selectmen that wants to take this role,
Or a designee.
or a designee. But hopefully there's a member on the selectmen that would like to do it.
We can discuss this when we discuss it further at our next meeting, okay?
I don't, and just for thinking, I don't think there'll be a problem with finding someone to be willing to handle this task.
All right.
Thank you, Alan.
Next item would be minutes.
I make a motion
No.
to approve
Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. We're going to
the
the
Shirtlift Park.
request to use Shirtlift Park,
I'll make a motion to approve the
Second.
Carver Music Boosters.
okay? I just wanted to comment that I haven't seen the Farmers Market Committee and what their requests will be, but I'm sure they're coming in to ask for Sundays. But any Sunday group, like the music group that was coming in, we've always worked together in the park so that we could both function there. So I don't see a conflict.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. I move we approve it and waive the fee.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, it's unanimous, Michelle. Okay, next one is a fishing permit for Sampson's Pond.
I move we approve.
Okay, discussion?
Is there any fee associated with that normally?
$50 non-refundable.
Okay. This would not be a case where we would waive it, is that correct?
Generally not, because it's usually from fishing clubs and things like that.
Okay. All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 5-0. 4. Okay, now we're at minutes, Helen.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, any omissions or additions to the minutes of March 30th? Okay, all those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous, 5-0. Accept the minutes, okay. Public comment period.
Andy, you made it all the way.
Do we have someone that would like to speak to us about an issue?
Either me or Captain. I'll say one thing. Andy Cottarelli, 19 Pope's Point Road. I just want to say, to Alan's point, good job on bringing up the topic of having a representative at the school contractual negotiations. I was actually kind of shocked to learn a while ago that we have never had one representing the people. And it's great to have a great relationship with the schools, and those are employees of the town as well, and, you know, they're all nice people and everything, but I think that with the school and many of the contractual obligations in town, we have to remember, as a town, as the government, you have to remember we have to stay in parity with the populace that we have living here. I remember at our Saturday budget meetings, you were all there, and the finance committee was there. Liz Sorrell had said that many of the teachers out of 10 years had taken 3 zeros in, you know, meaning raises. Well, I caught her in the hall, and just a little personal part about myself. I'm kind of, you know, fiscally conservative, and I told her, I said, Liz, in the last 10 years, I've taken 8 zeros and 2 minuses. I've got my pay cut twice. And things are getting better now, you know, thankfully. But this is what you're dealing with. And when you see an increase for the schools, which is the largest budget in town, you know, $22 million, and we haven't had a representative there to represent the people. I mean, we're not a rich town. Wish we were. I wish I made $1 million a year. I don't. My taxes are now over $5,000 a year, you know, for my house, and I've not done nothing to it. You know, so it's just things like that that you need to keep in mind. And anybody who is the representative, you or Michael or whoever it is, I think it's time, not to sound like the bad guy here, but maybe I need to sound like the bad guy. Maybe it's time to start bringing things back down into parity with the populace in contractual negotiations. And if that means a new pay scale for starting teachers, starting employees of the town, not just teachers, anyone working for the town, maybe that's what it means. And some people won't want to hear that, but a new school and teachers to teach your kids doesn't do any good to anybody if you can't afford to stay in the town and live in the town. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are at our town administrator evaluation. What's your pleasure on how we go forward here, folks?
Mr. Chairman, I thought that we were going to have a summary written up for us to go over in public session. Did that never come about?
I believe from everything we read, we're supposed to make public comments now, and then at the point in time when we feel we've reached a point where we're ready to create a summary, then we go into executive session to create the summary. We've had a lot of emails coming back and forth, and having read them through thoroughly, I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
I was going to say, I was getting very confused by that.
I'm very confused as to, it tells me to say something very general, that's reflective of the board, and not to get too specific, and not to refer to my own notes, so I'm really unclear as to what I can say that won't be in violation of everything that I've read over the last 3 days.
So everybody received the same email from town council.
And
Through
they're
you,
pretty much
Mr.
clear
Chair.
as mud.
And I have to say, I was a little taken back that a performance appraisal has gotten to a point, the first one, mind you, in 17 years, well, we had one, that we had to spend money on an attorney, which leads me to say, what does everyone plan on saying tonight, that we had to go to an attorney to find out yay or nay what we can speak?
If I could, I don't think it's really, I think we're just trying to understand the process, because as I understand it, town administrators and superintendents are held to a different standard. They're not the same, they don't have the same benefits of privacy that you and I do, or that the average employee in town hall does. They're held to a different standard of openness in the process.
I absolutely agree with that.
And since we haven't done it before, or as regularly as we should have, the process has been changed, so we had to find out exactly what we were and weren't allowed to say. So it wasn't, it was driven by, you know, by the fact that having not done it, we had no familiarity with what the procedure was.
No, and I agree with that, but.
And we wanted it, when we needed advice, to know just what we could or couldn't say in order to protect the town administrator. So we did need some clarification.
No, and I understand that, but the questions got pretty specific as to, okay, this should be general. Again, I'm gonna go back to, a performance appraisal should really be when there's nitty-gritty, when there's concerns with the manager and the employee. And I know that we have to be open because it's a municipality. However, I still think that what is said in open session should be pretty general. And I don't think we should have spent, I guarantee that's gonna cost a couple of grand, the emails that I saw going back and forth today.
Anyway, I think what came through, what I saw, was that our comments are supposed to be general, and we aren't supposed to refer to the notes that we had as individual select people. But, again,
So-
I've read it several
I'll
times.
take a stab at this.
Okay.
Well, let me,
Oh, go ahead,
we
sir.
we established a tool that we were gonna use. That was for our own use and our own notes. Then, the second phase was kind of to present something to the public, but we had to be brief and careful. And as town council said, it is a murky area with all towns. It's, done in a lot of different ways. When we go to the third stage, which we probably should move to as soon as we could, is executive session, because whatever we come up with a summary statement, it's confidential, it's gonna go into the town administrator's permanent file. And so, that would be the third phase. So we are in the second phase right now, as I understand it.
I believe at this point, each of us
Stab
should
away, yeah.
take a turn at saying something about the evaluation and whatever we feel we are allowed to say about the town administrator.
So here I
The
go.
town administrator will then have an opportunity to say something, and then we go to executive session.
And
If
But
I-
not
if I got
tonight.
that
We're
right-
gonna
If
keep
I
it-
got that right.
And we're gonna keep it brief.
Okay, just briefly, part of the evaluation process is, the town administrator had certain goals that the board wanted him to go ahead and meet for FY 15. One of those, the goals was to go ahead and work the budget to be able to afford 2 new police officers to support the drug problem in the town of Carver. Successful with that, no question. Another requirement, I'm thinking off the top of my head because I don't have the notes in front of me, was to go ahead. Oh, thank you. Okay, also to be working to see the town through on new elementary school, fire station, police station. We've gotten through the last special town meeting, the new fire station's on track. The money was approved. If anybody's driving down the street, you'll see the trees are already coming down, where the new fire station's going to go. That's being done, by volunteer work. A lot of the work in the site prep work is being done by volunteers from the fire department. So another success. Update the Carver Master Plan. Oh, these are 3 to 5 year goals. Support jobs and business and tax base expansion, basically brand Carver and have growth in Carver. I think that's an ongoing process. I don't think, that's not something you can finish in 1 year, but I think he's working towards that. And focus on elementary school project in a cost-effective manner and to secure town support. I think as part of the building committee, Michael has done that in spades. He's working very hard ensuring openness. I personally, I've just coming up a year on the job now. Michael was hired just before, I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, he's met his goals, and I've seen some great progress and improvement throughout the year. Thank you.
That was very.
I'm a dunham, I talk a lot, I'm
Would you like to go next?
Sure. I would concur with Alan on the issues of the school building project, as well as balancing the budget to try to get our bond rating up, so when we do go out for that borrowing, we can get a better interest rate. On the negative side, I guess the most I can really say is that I think some of the ways in which those goals got accomplished, I would disagree with, and I think might need some improvement. I guess that's about it.
Want me to go next? I wrote up a statement, and I'm gonna shorten it up. I think Mr. Malinowski has done a better than average job as our town administrator over his first year in Carver. He has addressed many of the goals. He has spent long hours and worked very hard and pushed a great deal of energy into his job. He developed the governance committee, which approached a lot of issues, and these were not easy issues. They were tough, and you're not always gonna make new friends in this process, but he worked hard at it, and I see that I'm encouraging him to work on communications. He has so much energy sometimes, I think that he moves forward. And when I'm saying it to him, I'm looking him right in the eyes and I'm saying, gotta slow it down a little bit. But overall, my assessment is that he's done a good job.
I also rated the town administrator as meeting expectations, in some cases exceeding expectations. I thought the work on the school building project, the fire station building committee, developing and implementing board fiscal policies, the reorganization of the inspections department, and exploring alternative approaches to traditional issues within town government and other initiatives have been a breath of fresh air that we needed in town. And again, nothing against his predecessor, but I think that we have moved positively in a positive direction over the last year. The town administrator and I have had a number of conversations about how important it is to strengthen our relationships with the school side, so that we're all speaking with one voice, and also the need for making sure that the communication process takes everyone into account in advance of, just because I think that's an important part of winning consensus.
Ellen?
I definitely concur with Alan, Dick, and Ron in that I think that in most categories, Michael, I think you have met or exceeded expectations of what I had expected. You have come on board in a very challenging time. You've come on board when we have directed you to do some pretty tense, tenuous discussions. So just some of the successes that you've done that, in my opinion, have gone above and beyond is you through your help, we established the Selectmen's Code of Conduct. You created the Governance Committee. With your help and expertise, we did the Blogger Code of Conduct. The financial management policy is beyond exceptional, in my opinion. The amount of hours that you and Meg have put in trying to make what we directed you to do in terms of those 2 police officers, I think was phenomenal. And I think this town is very fortunate to have you, because you're not afraid to take the heat. You also created the school building committee to create that through our direction, but to start that camaraderie of bringing us all together. And I just have to emphasize that you coming back with these financial solutions in terms of restructuring the town department to gain, efficiencies and improvement for the residents, and how they get handled at town hall, and for improving our bottom line. Again, I think it was phenomenal. So there were some areas that you met expectations, but again, as a manager who has done several performance appraisals over my career, unless a resident wants to call me with any, what were the concerns, I don't think there were many, but we talk real time when any type of a concern comes up, and I think that's the way it should be. I think it should be a constant communication when issues are arising. But overall, Carver, I believe, is very fortunate to have you.
Michael, Mr. Malinowski, you have an opportunity to address it.
I'd just like to say it's been a pleasure working here. I think some of and all of the staff that that are working towards a common goal is something to be very proud of. And I think when you look at the leadership that the selectmen have done and what the teams of employees have done together, a lot has been accomplished. And it's been a real enjoyment helping to foster those improvements the town has had. I guess the only thing that I still find discouraging is that I came from a community where I was always intimately involved in working with the superintendent and the chairman of the school committee, and I still have regular conversations with them every couple weeks. And that's the piece that I find a little troubling in this town. That being said, it's something we need to work on. I think there's a lot of great successes. I think this school building committee, you know, with their unanimous votes, is really emphasizing, I think, the number one priority the selectmen put on my shoulders is to make sure we get a school built, and I think we're going in the right direction. And I think as more and more information comes out, is that this time will show that the project is going to meet all expectations of the community. You know, the financial components of the town, we're going to be borrowing $40 million. You've heard me talking about that before. These are some tough decisions that have to be made. And those are being made for the long-term interest of the community. And, you know, with those financial management policies, that's where our focus is right now. And we're holding steadfast on that. And I appreciate you guys having the confidence in me and believing in my integrity to help us get there. And it's been a real pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Now, would you like to move to an executive session to?
Make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining negotiations with unions, and for non-union negotiations, including the town administrator, performance evaluation, and with all non-union personnel not under contract, and strategy for litigation, and for purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate that may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town if held in open session, and to reconvene in open session for the purpose only of adjournment.
Could you repeat that, please?
No.
Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Okay. Voice vote.
Discussion first? We have things we have to get done tonight?
Yes, we'll be quick.
Okay, Alan Dunham says aye.
I don't know. Is it something I need to recuse myself on?
No.
Well, except we have to have the discussion about the how the form of the evaluation.
But we need Sarah and everybody on
No, I'm
board.
just asking about the,
Yep.
Oh, whether it's OPEB or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you would probably excuse yourself at that time if it comes up.
Okay.
all right, Sarah
Dick-
Stewart says aye.
Dick Ward says aye.
Ron Clark says aye.
Ellen Maroney says aye.